on behalf of the ACG administration and in celebration of the World Environment Day that was 2 days ago, I would like to welcome you all to our half-day conference titled Sustainability, the Future is Now, an event that is co-organized by the Office of Public Affairs, the Office of Advancement and Alumni, the Center of Excellence in Sustainability, with the support of the Deree Fashion Club and the Deree Sustainability Leaders, and of course in collaboration with our partner, the Hadzigakis Foundation. And I would like to welcome especially the members of the board and the Secretary General who are with us today, and we will have the chance to introduce them a little bit later again. So, today's conference will focus on raising awareness and promoting best practices in sustainable development, circular economy, and zero-waste fashion. We are happy to host many experienced and inspiring professionals as speakers, some of them alumni also of our institution, and we would like to take a moment to welcome them back home, as we like to say. We have alumni both as speakers and as participants, and we thank them for their attendance here today. We have also professionals from business, NGOs, and academia that are joining us, and we are very eager to listen to their presentations. Our speakers will participate in 3 separate panels and will engage later in what we believe will be a fruitful discussion and conversation with the audience. Fashion, I understand, is a major player in the global economy, so we are very eager to listen what the representatives of the Hellenic fashion industry have to say about that and how they feel the need to implement the sustainability best practices in their operations, and to what extent actually this has been done so far in Greece. At ACG we take sustainability very seriously. For those of you who are not familiar with what we do, we basically work on a 360 approach. We are the only academic institution in Greece, and we are very proud for that, that has been measured and awarded for its sustainability practices. And we have been awarded the STARS Gold Rating in 2020 by the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, an international renowned organization measuring more than 900 institutions globally, but we are the only one in Greece to be measured. And we have been the receivers of the gold rating based on our best practices in 5 different categories. That is academics, the academic offerings we provide our students with. Second, engagement and social impact. Third, operations. Fourth, planning and administration. And last, leadership and innovation. For all our efforts in all these areas, we have been distinguished with a very important distinction. The conference today aims to be action-oriented, not just theory, so there are parallel activities that are organized. A fashion show, not to be missed, will take place later after the presentations, the panel presentations. That will show Greek Circle of Fashion brands, powered by Deree students as models. And there will be also displays with student projects on circular economy and zero-waste fashion. So I would like to thank all of the people that participated in putting everything together and making this event possible. And I would like to especially thank my colleague at the Office of Public Affairs, Xαιρετάκη, our Senior Sustainability Manager, for her commitment and leadership for this event and other events that are happening on campus. ACG is the only, let me also say that, is the only academic institution that has established such an administrative position at this level. We work, of course, very closely with our academics and our Executive Director of the Center of Excellence in Sustainability, Professor Dr. Stella Apostolaki, who will be among the speakers today. Now, the Center of Excellence in Sustainability was a pioneer center as well, established in 2011. I think Dr. Apostolaki will mention more about this. But this is just one of the 4 centers of excellence that have been established by ACG since 2017, the rest of the centers, aiming at enhancing both our academic footprint and research. so that we support our overall efforts for further economic and social economic growth and social impact in Greece. I would like to thank Maria Laina, our colleague from the Office of Advancement and Alumni, for their continued support in all the activities and especially in this event, and for helping providing the very important supporters and sponsors of our event. Thank you, a big thank you to the sponsors for making our event even more successful and beautiful. And of course I would like to thank Elizabeth Hadzigaki, the Secretary General of the Hadzigakis Foundation. I have to say also publicly that I still remember you as a student here at Deree, and as I said earlier, you had always been very active and engaged in a variety of activities along with your classes, and we remember you coming in and out our office and trying to organize things. We see, and we are very proud to see that all this activity has found a way to be channeled even more productively through the Hadzigakis Foundation, and we would like to congratulate you for all the good work you do through your institution. So, without further ado, I would like to also thank all the members of the events, the college events, Vivian, Melina, Nikki, and everybody else who helped, the students who are here with us today, the few students. Hopefully we will get more students later in the day. And I wish you success in your panels, and we hope to be able to see more partnerships like the one we have today going forward. We do lots of things here at the college, so we are open to more synergies and partnerships with Violetta at the back, another successful alumna of our institution. So thank you all for being with us today. I would like to invite Elizabeth to the podium. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Karidis. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here as a former student. On behalf of the President, Dr. Hadzigakis, and the members of the Board of Directors of Hadzigakis Foundation, I would like to welcome you all here today. We are thrilled to be here for a plethora of reasons, but I'll highlight just two for time's sake. This conference has been long in the plans, and we're very happy it has blossomed into such a beautiful multidimensional event with the active participation of students. And B, on a more personal note, I have to confess it feels like yesterday, roaming the corridors of this library in and out as an undergraduate student, and now I'm back here, it appears, wearing a different hat, obviously, but still practicing the values of benevolence, solidarity, and service to the community that I was taught here. By the way, the library was my favorite place. The conference is traditionally organized by Hadzigakis Foundation, rely on one key basic idea: amplify a constant and fruitful dialogue with society about key and timely issues that have impacts in all of our lives. In 2013, for example, the Hadzigakis Foundation organized its first conference during the devastating economic recession on health and welfare during times of economic struggle. Equally this year, during particularly turbulent times for our world, we are lucky enough to co-host with the American College of Greece, Sustainability, the Future is Now. And we had two objectives in mind, actually. The first one, we believe it's high time we shed some light on specific themes that have become topics of concern universally, namely sustainability, circular economy, circular entrepreneurship, and especially emphasize on the alarmingly polluting fashion industry. But unlike similar conferences, we aim to approach these themes from different perspectives. And we are lucky enough to have with us an eclectic group of speakers who will help us navigate through these topics. The second objective is linked to a vital human need we've all been deprived of, admittedly, in the last 2 years. The need to reconnect with one another in meaningful ways and inspire and motivate one another and share our stories openly and also provide incentives. Woo! and also provide incentives so we can reshape the narrative perhaps. Renowned economist John Maynard Keynes once said, and I still read about him and remember this quote, "Ideas shape the course of history." And in truth, we hope this conference serves as a platform for all of us to shape and form clear ideas and get to openly discuss them and share them with each other. And finally, be able to make informed decisions as citizens of this world and be able to inspire our peers to do the same. So, without further ado, allow me to extend a special heartfelt thank you to our distinguished speakers for being here today and so graciously accepting our invitations. To all of you who have come here, thank you. And to the people watching online, and of course, to the ACG and Hadzigakis Foundation teams for working around the clock to make this conference possible. Thank you. And I would like to call to the podium Mr. Zombolas, Deputy Mayor at Regia Perskivi for the Youth.
Hello everyone. I'm not so fluent in English, so dear honorable hosts from the American College of Greece, dear General Secretary of the Foundation, Elizabeth Hadzigakis, thank you for the invitation. I deliver the Mayor's greetings of Municipality of Agia Paraskevi, Mr. Zobas, in this interesting conference of our neighbor Deree College, which contributes special service to our local community. The fact that we meet in this corner of the world is a distinct proof that the necessity for adjustment to new standards for innovation and review of our goals and priorities has become more intense than ever. To begin with, let me present you to some of my thoughts regarding the cycling economy in collaboration with local authorities and social economy. The key words are collaboration and youth. We have to inspire the new generations about the zero waste philosophy and the new entry of food crisis with the war in Ukraine, which is unknown when it ends, and the unsustainable status in this dark moment of our modern history. We will have to redefine our priorities in daily basis. With these thoughts, I wish you all the best for the success of this conference. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Maison Faliakos. I'm the Senior Sustainability Manager at the American College of Greece, and I will be moderating the first panel on sustainability, a spherical discussion. So I would like to invite to the stage the fellow speakers. Dr. Stella Apostolaki, Executive Director of the Center of Excellence in Sustainability and Coordinator of the Environmental Studies Program. Mr. Albertus Rebach, Founder and Investments Director, Humboldt Holdings, Luxembourg. Mr. John Eliopoulos, CEO and Co-Founder We For All. And last but not least, Mr. Sotiris Pastras, Sustainability and Corporate Responsibility Manager of Akvita. I don't like being alone. I'll join the company. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here and being around of esteemed professionals and like-minded people, friends of the panel, colleagues and business partners. It's sustainability time. We all been hearing and we all becoming more and more familiar with the terms climate crisis, climate change, societal crisis, caring for our future, of our environment, caring for future generations, caring for our planet. So the key to all this, we hear the word sustainability. We all should act sustainably in order to sustain our lives, our business, and our planet. We're here in Greece in 2022, so let's see where we are now. I would like to start with Dr. Apostolaki, just to how sustainability is addressed. You represent an academic institution, educational institution in Greece, so how sustainability is addressed in the educational sector in the ACG?
Yes, hello. Hello from me. I'm Stella Apostolaki. Let me very briefly introduce myself. I'm an assistant professor here at Deree in the Environmental Studies program, and I'm coordinator of the Environmental Studies program and executive director of the Center of Excellence Sustainability. I would like to welcome you all to this event. Now, sustainability is very closely linked to education. We all know that sustainable development is a concept that is about addressing issues in a holistic way, taking into consideration environment, society, and economy. And of course, education could not be separated from this concept. So education is a concept embedded within sustainability, meaning that we cannot really achieve a good level of sustainability or development, sustainable development, without appropriate education. And the other way around, sustainability should use education as a means to reach out to the public, to people. Along this context, the United Nations have, as we all know, established the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This happened in 2015. The Sustainable Development Goals have been adopted by all the countries of the United Nations. European Union was a pioneer in that. They were behind the formulation of these 17 goals. One of the goals which is central and fundamental, I would say, for the achievement in all other goals is goal number 4, which is goal about quality education. The target, the sub-goal, the sub-target of goal number 4, 4.7, is a goal that refers to holistic education, education addressed to all people, all levels, including academic education, university education, lifelong learning, public education, education to combat issues that are related to discrimination, to violence, to racism, to gender inequalities. So it is a very important target. Universities around the world are trying to work around this goal. Here at ACG, we have made a lot of progress in that. First of all, we have included and adopted the sustainability concepts in a lot of our studies. The Center of Excellence in Sustainability is very closely linked to 2 programs that we have, the Environmental Studies program and the Biomedical Sciences program. These 2 programs include sustainability in the description, in their own program specifications and description, meaning that the courses in these programs cannot be taught without sustainability in mind, without our students learning about sustainability and the different aspects in the context of their own courses. Apart from that, ACG is working a lot on public education, on an outreach through events like the event that we are attending today, through initiatives that take place in our campus. Ms. Karidi referred to such initiatives and to such actions. She referred to the STARS award that ACG has gained, and she mentioned that we got this award also because of our performance in academic issues and research, which is mainly the core part of education. So the academic world is trying to become more sustainable, to teach sustainable development. This is a way forward. Here at ACG, I think we are a step ahead in this aspect because we have thought about that and we have planned for education and sustainable development since at least a decade ago.
That is correct. We were living in sustainability, I must confess. Mr. Revach, we have a new term today, nowadays. Apart from sustainability, we've moved to ESG. How sustainability, or ESG, which stands for Environment, Society and Governance, is addressing the investment sector?
Not enough, obviously. Quick introduction about me. I'm Alberto Revach. I went into sustainable investments about 6 years ago. I founded two investment companies out of Luxembourg, one called Humble Holdings, the other one called Humble Investments. And I invest only in ideas and businesses that are good for you, good for people, and good for the planet. Either mostly startups, but also in funds. So I tend to believe that there's a lot of discussion, not just in Greece, but of course globally, around sustainability, around ESG. A lot of banks have incorporated ESG into their investment strategies and criteria. But unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be enough regulation about what we actually mean when we say sustainability or ESG. And what I tend to see is that the more we advance the discussion about what sustainability is, the more we also advance the greenwashing efforts of a lot of companies who cannot become sustainable. Like really large corporations are impossible to make fully sustainable. So what they do is, because they have to do something, they like to talk a lot about it. The problem with this is that I don't think that government can regulate sustainability. It's a concept. Sustainability is a word, and you can do whatever you want with it. I personally don't like it, because what we have, if we say that we want to create a sustainable future, sustainable compared to what? Compared to today, which is unsustainable? Do we want to sustain? The word sustain means to keep the same. We cannot sustain this, what we're living through right now. We have to change things. But governments cannot act as the chaperones of this process. So we need more organizations, private organizations like universities, like B Corp, and I'm very glad that Sotiris is here today to talk about that, to guide us through the principles of true sustainability. And unfortunately, we also make a mistake. We tend to forget that sustainability doesn't only mean eco-sustainability. It also means human sustainability. It also has to do with how we treat our workers, how we treat our people, how we pay them, how we educate them through the work. One of the core beliefs that I have is that, and it's going to sound kind of weird, but only investors can save the planet. And why do I believe that? Because when I say investors, I include shareholders in big corporations. Imagine if every shareholder in Coca-Cola all of a sudden said, no more plastics. I don't know, figure it out. Use recyclable cartons, or do something else. It's usually the shareholders that drive the companies, and it's the companies that drive even governments in the US. And they also drive consumer demand, consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is mostly attributed to advertising and, of course, education. So if investors put their money, and money makes the world go round, if investors put their money in the right places and in the right processes, the right companies, the right ideas, We could turn this thing around. And that's what I'm trying to do with my tiny little investments. But if everybody who has power and has money had the mindset of, you know what, I'm only going to invest in companies that do the right thing for people and the planet, true ESG, not just paper ESG, then we could turn this thing around. That's what I think.
That's very interesting thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Aruch. And now I will pass the floor to a Greek company in Greece. How businesses in Greece see sustainability and how they address this concept, this idea.
Thank you, Rania. First of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you, American College of Greece and Hatζηγάκη Foundation for the invitation, and you personally, Rania. I know Rania very well, as we are both members of the Corporate Responsibility Committee of the Hellenic American Chamber of Commerce. And I am able to say that Rania is by far the most focused professional I know, more than anyone else, to the 17th Sustainable Development Goal, as she always seeks for collaborations, for partnerships, for synergies, as proven by several initiatives she takes on the field. When the discussion comes to natural cosmetics industry, which is actually the sector where Apivita belongs to, sustainability does not only refer to the way an ingredient is sourced or how the product is produced, but also the materials we use in our production process, and of course the post-production phase of the product. So the 5 main sustainability pillars regarding Apivita sustainability strategy, which are more or less common to the most cosmetics industries worldwide, is the product stewardship, responsible logistics, responsible manufacturing processes, sustainable sourcing, and of course initiatives regarding employees' well-being. For those who are not familiar, Apivita was the first B Corp certified, Greek B Corp certified company back in 2017. Last week we announced our recertification with the amazing score of 117.2 points, which is quite amazing because it's 38% better performance than the previous one back in 2017. B-Impact assessment is, in my personal opinion, by far the most strictest assessment you can find out there. It's consisted of more than 250 questions, 250 questions with document-based answers in 5 different pillars. On top of that, since March of 2022, Apivita is proud member of B-Beauty Coalition. B-Beauty Coalition is a network of B-certified beauty companies all over the world. There are about 34 or 36, if I remember well, most of them European. We work together to improve the sustainability standards, and the most important, we work together to propose to European Union the new framework regarding the sustainability reporting for the cosmetics industry. Apart from that, we conduct on a 2-year basis a sustainability report to inform our stakeholders about our environmental and social progress. I would like to mention that in 2021, Apivita, for the first time in its history, calculated the total carbon footprint emission as a result of its total business activities in scopes 1, 2, and 3, which came with an amazing primary data documentation of 65%. For those who run similar exercises, similar projects, they can understand how difficult it is to provide primary data more than 65%. To overpass this achievement and to meet the standards of the society, we have joined 2 global initiatives in order to address our commitment to addressing sustainability issues. The first one is Science-Based Targets Project, and the second one is the CDP questionnaire, the Carbon Disclosure Project questionnaire, which is running right now in Apivita and is quite challenging.
Thank you, Sotiris. Mr. Eliopoulos, you represent an NGO in Greece, We For All. So how NGOs in Greece are addressing sustainability, are promoting sustainable practices?
Thank you very much. So good morning from me. Short introduction. I'm John Eliopoulos. I am co-founder of the non-profit environmental organization We For All. And We For All was started after the fires of Mati, Attica in 2018. I approached the subject of sustainability from the standpoint of a normal civilian, a normal citizen, like most of us, who is watching our world change month by month, year by year, is watching the destruction of our forests and our natural resources happening all the time, and feeling helpless or feeling like nobody is doing enough. So it was my decision and my cousins at the time to initiate this organized effort to be the change that we wanted to see. So our main lines of operation was, and still is, tree plantings, reforestation activities in Greece and around the world, and most importantly, educating young children and educating all classes of people, raising awareness in regards to sustainability. Now, sustainability is a fancy word that it took me a while to understand what it actually means. But to me, it means to respect life. Like to be in harmony with nature and other life forms. I mean, if one understands the basic concept that this equates to, then you know what to do, you know what has to be done. The respectable speaker before said something very, very correct, that investments and money around this world that we live in, so where money goes, change happens in that direction. Now I want to take it one step further, and I would say that yes, it's true, but if people demand things, if the preference of people goes in the direction of sustainability, if they stop using so much plastic, if they adjust their eating habits, and I'm not advocating anything regarding eating, but I can remember myself eating 3 times per day meat and 6 chicken legs per dinner, let's say. 6 chicken legs per dinner is 3 chicken. This cannot be sustainable for 8 billion people. So, in my humble opinion, the road to more sustainable living goes through more awareness, more education, and for this, like the educational institutions like the American College of Greece are doing a great work, and the more this happens, the more our world will change. I see it as an inevitability that our world will change. The only question is if it will change fast enough. So from our standpoint as We For All, we're trying to precipitate this change, and we have up to date educated about 35,000 children in a special seminar about our planet, about tree planting, about how to help people live a more sustainable life. And we have planted over 200,000 trees, which is just a tiny fraction of what we will plant this year. And the way that we did that was by what we call the Environmental Alliance of We For All, which is an alliance of mostly companies and institutions that recognize this need of change and that want to support our work. And I'm very thankful to all of them. So, yeah, this is my view on the subject.
Thank you. We need people like you in the community, and working together with you, it's a must. Another big issue that we're all facing, we've all mentioned that no one can do it alone, that we need cooperation. So we were talking about engagement of our people, engagement of the society. So I would like to ask Mr. Pastras, how Apivita engages its people in promoting sustainability and its overall community, and if at what level we are, what practices, or what we can do if we are not at the optimal level, what we can do, what we can advise other organizations to do in order for our members to be more engaged, for your members and the society to be more engaged.
Okay, thank you, Rania, for the question. I will refer to what we are doing in Apivita and offer some advices, if I can offer some advices. Okay, in my personal opinion, there are 4 basic steps. The first step is to define what is the company's long-term purpose. Why does a company do what it does? This answer must be shared on a regular basis with your employees. Not only this answer, but also your progress on the sustainable development journey. Also, any achievement of any goal. For example, in Apivita last week, during our certification announcement as a B Corp company, we celebrated among with our employees. The second step is to keep educating your employees. John mentioned about education. We also are big fans of education, not only to the society but also to our employees, educating them about the importance of sustainability and to create and enable systems which will allow them to adapt sustainability practice, sustainability habits in their daily work life. Towards this direction, we recently collaborated with Paul Polman, and we launched last February an ESG learning program available for all Apivita employees. The third and the most important, in my personal opinion, is to create and enable communication inside the company, within the organization. We call it sustainability team. We may find several of these teams in other companies like green team, CSR team, ESG teams. It's more or less the same, but it's way too important to bring together several employees, several colleagues from different departments. Our sustainability team is consisted from several departments such as production, logistics, supply chain, HR, of course, marketing, and sustainability. And of course, we are really proud of this team because, no, I will tell it next week, because we are really proud of this team. Last but not least, a company must act on employees' initiatives. When an employee sees that the positive impact of its social and environmental proposal, then he starts believing that he has a role to play. He starts being a member of this sustainability journey. On top of that, Apivita HR department has a great initiative. During the recruitment process, all of our candidates are strongly recommended to read our sustainability report before proceeding to the interview. With this method, with this practice, we are sure that our newbies, as we call them, newbies in the hive, are ready and familiar with our sustainability approach and with our sustainability strategy.
Dr. Apostolaki?
Yes.
How ICG engages its community or academic institutions in general?
Yes, I would say that as we have already mentioned, education has to be holistic, otherwise it does not address the sustainability elements. So education is changing, it is transforming nowadays. We cannot stay in these individual disciplines as we did in the past, but we have to face all disciplines from a holistic view, meaning that we have to address the environmental, the social aspect, and of course the economic aspect. Otherwise, if we do not focus also on economic growth, the whole construction of sustainability will collapse, because unfortunately or fortunately our societies are based on income and on the finances. So education should address all these aspects. There is an effort to go towards more transformative education in general. Here at ACG, we are trying to follow this approach. One thing that we do very well is to engage our students in several activities. The experiential learning that becomes bigger and bigger, and we're focusing more and more on that. Our campus is used in many occasions as a living lab, meaning that the students are either following experiments or projects that they are related to the life on the campus. Of course, we are very lucky to be in such a campus and to be near a forest, a protected area, or the protected area of Ιδρύματος. So we have a very nice natural environment, which of course we want to preserve, and we want our students to be, yes, and we want our students to know about it and to get to know how they could preserve it. But of course we go beyond that through several other initiatives. So we are learning by experience, both our students and us, their professors, and the rest of the staff. We are also trying to broaden our horizons regarding education. We have become partners of a big European initiative, the New European Bauhaus Initiative, which connects education and sustainability with beauty. It connects sustainability with art and culture. So we are trying to have the holistic approach that our society needs.
Thank you. Also, I want to add something that, apart from the academic, our student life is full of sustainability, I would say. We have a dedicated group, the sustainability leaders, that they're on a volunteer basis, and we are so proud of our students that, apart from their academic requirements, they dedicate their times in giving back to the community. Mr. Eliopoulos.
Okay, so it was our initial vision to engage people, like to make people feel like we are all a big family, we are all living in the same home, which is this planet, and we wanted to create opportunities for people to be engaged in changing our planet and in helping. So we created various initiatives that had to do with that, and we started obviously with tree planting events and engaging the fire-afflicted communities. Primarily we started from the Mati area, Rafina, Marathon, etc. And later on we expanded in the broader Attica region, and then all over Greece, and now even in some countries abroad. So I was happy today to see some of our volunteers in this very room, and I'm very happy to see that the family is expanding. Of course, We For All is an all-embracive community. Like anybody who wants to help is a part of us. And of course, nowadays the world is very much revolving around the digital aspects of things. So many times we create initiatives that engage people digitally and gives them an opportunity to help, to assist, to raise awareness only through their phone. And as time passes, we're trying to do this more and more. Of course, at some point, it has to translate into physical action. In the same concept, we are addressing companies and their employees by webinars focused on specific matters, which always and continuously increase awareness. Of course, it is by now it shows that companies are the ones that are leading this effort towards sustainability. They are demanded by their public, by their clients, to shift towards sustainability. They are demanded by their employees to shift towards sustainability, and now even they are required by the law to shift towards sustainability. And the more this happens, the more there is a demand to create engaging events and activities for their employees. We have done, like only this year, over 100 corporate events in nature mostly, engaging the people of companies into some activity that is assisting the planet, whether it's tree planting or watering the trees or cleanups and so on. And I expect that we will be doing that in an ever-growing way.
Thank you. Mr. Vach, you mentioned earlier that the crucial point is to care for our people, for our members. So how your organization or the investment sector is doing on the progress of engagement in this sector?
So let's start with one definition. What I do and what some other investors around me do is called impact investing. So impact investing focuses on the triple bottom line: profit, people, planet. Without profit, you're not making an investment, you're doing charity work, and that's great, but you have to define investment as something that's going to yield a profit at the end. But at the same time, you look at people and the planet that have to be equally important in an investment. So impact investors engage in two different dimensions. The first dimension is quite simple: trying to spread the word within the investment community. If everybody who is an investor, in a way everybody in this room is an investor. If you have any money in the bank, you're an investor. If every investor allocated a specific percentage, let's say 10% of the investment portfolio into impact investing, then change would be rapid. If we could increase that to 20, 30, 40%, then the change would be amazing and extremely fast, and we could resolve a lot of the issues that we're facing. So part of the engagement we try to have as impact investors is to discuss, and we always bring in the forefront the profit part to people who are not impact investors, because most investors care about the profit part. So we bring them ideas and examples of great investments that we have made in the impact investment sector that have yielded great profit and at the same time done good for people and the planet. So we try to convince more investors to invest part of the portfolio into impact investing. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. There's a lot of impact investment funds that you can invest in, or you can invest directly, co-invest with an impact investor into a project. That's one part of the engagement. The second part of the engagement we have is with startup founders. So startup founders, they're always looking for investors in their companies, and we mostly discuss things with people who have ideas which are sustainable, they're good for people, good for the planet. And what we try to do is we try to guide them into becoming even more sustainable in their ideas. Give you an example. One of my investments in Greece, actually, is called Planet Foods. It's a small startup that started 2 years ago by a guy called Greg Boudrakos. He had an idea. He wanted to create the first Greek vegan ice cream company and be 110% sustainable. And one of the things I always discuss is, how can we be even more sustainable than carbon neutral? Design a product to be as as environmentally friendly as possible, then measure your impact and offset it by 110%. So if your product is designed in the right way, or your service is designed in the right way, it will have a low impact to begin with. Then you can measure that impact through life cycle assessment studies, for example, which has a cost, but it's not that prohibitive. And then go to We4All, plant some trees, which will give you some carbon credits, and offset the impact by 110%. That way, your product is not only not doing harm, but it's actually doing good for the planet. So he read about this somewhere, and he came to me, and he said, I have this idea for a vegan ice cream company that's going to be 110% sustainable. I'm like, okay, are you going to do an LCA? It's like, I'm very small, I can't afford the LCA, but I would love to do the offsets. So he went ahead, and he did a bunch of offsets. He created a vegan ice cream brand, which by definition has a much lower impact than milk. And cow's milk is one of the worst things for the environment. He uses only Greek ingredients, Greek oats for the milk. And the packaging he chose, he had to bring it from Canada because he couldn't be plastic. This had to be a biodegradable packaging, and he found a company in Canada that does these tubes for ice cream, which are made of paper, and the coating inside is made of sugar, 100% biodegradable. And I was very happy to invest in his company and his idea. What I added, and that's the engagement part, I said, okay, don't forget about people. When he came to me, it was a solo act. Now he's going to open his first little shop down in Monastiraki. And I said, okay, when you hire your first people, which is going to be a driver to make deliveries and 2 people to scoop the ice cream in your shop, make sure you pay them a living wage. Don't pay them the minimum wage. It's going to cost you an extra $300-400 a month. And for the plan we have, it's not a big deal. But for these people, and for this idea, and for this investment, it's going to make a difference. So, 2 angles to what an investor can do to engage. Engage with the investment community, try to convince more people to bring money into the space, and then all the investments that we make, we engage with the founders to make sure that they set up their companies in the right way.
Thank you. Profit is not our enemy anymore. And of course, the CFO and the CSO, the Chief Sustainability Officer, are now friends. Thank you very much. Well, we are operating, we are interacting with the Greek community, we're operating in the Greek society. So how has the Greek society adapted sustainability practices? Is there a progress of this in this area? Have you noticed any notable changes in the latest year? Mr. Iliopoulos.
That's a very good question, and as I think most of us know, Greece is not spearheading this change towards sustainability. Thankfully, the countries that we look up to for change, for example, America and the more Western and Northern European countries, they are rapidly evolving towards more sustainable operation and way of life. So I believe that change is happening in a fast pace. However, our mentality as a people is still a little bit too Mediterranean, you know, to say the least. Like it's I cannot explain how people still are going to the beach and leaving the coffee, you know, cup or the cigarette butts, you know, even though we have an idea to address this very soon. And, you know, young people, like, it is bewildering to see that. However, there is change, and over the last, like, 3 years, especially COVID, had something to do with this change, you know, it made us think, it made us, there was a little reset, environmental reset, happening in the world and in Greece. The disasters happening are forcing people to wake up to the, you know, to the alarming climate change of the planet. We saw this year that there were 2 seasons basically. One day we had our AC open for hot, and then next day we had to put it on cold, you know, there was no period without AC. So I think that people are waking up to this. And of course it is our duty as companies and as NGOs to keep on pushing this matter home, you know, to keep on showing to people what is happening before it's too late, basically.
Thank you. Sotiris?
I totally agree with John. I'm not so optimistic, but we must admit that the last 5 years there has been a lot of progress. Events like this, for example, there were about 1 or 2 per year, and now we can find 1 or 2 sustainability topic events per month. Sustainability is everywhere inside the companies. All the companies talk about their sustainability pillars, their sustainability strategy, their sustainability approach to the 17 SDGs. This was not the case 5 years ago. The consumers, the customers, ask more questions regarding our sustainability impact, our, for example, animal testing policy, our packaging policy, our production processes, how we respect the environment during the production of the products. The TV commercials, if you search out there, we can see 1 out of 4 TV commercials share a sustainability message, share an environmental message, share a social message. At the same time, each Greek company, each big Greek company has a sustainability or a CSR manager or a CSR executive. If you asked a CEO in a Greek company 5 years ago if we really need a CSR or a sustainability manager, he or she would probably say, no, I have my corporate affairs, I have my marketing manager, I have my PR manager, we don't need. But we must say that we have a big gap between the intentions and the actions. Albertos mentioned about the regulation. I totally agree with Albertos. There is a huge lack of regulation, especially in Greece. There are a huge gap of between intentions. Intentions are not enough anymore. We must act. I loved the motto of Nespresso, which is also a big corp company. Doing is everything. I totally agree with this. We must act, and we must act rapidly.
Thank you. Mr. Vach?
I think there is change, and I think it's to the right direction in Greece. But we're lagging behind. We're lagging far behind. And you can see this from the very simple things like recycling. We recycle less than 10%, I think, something like this in Greece. Other countries have reached 90-95% in Northern Europe. And the issue here is twofold. Is education, which is something that needs to be addressed from when a child is in nursery school. And we know we have a problem with education in this country, especially public education. And the other part is government. I'm based in Luxembourg, and Luxembourg made the bold decision in March 2020 to make public transportation free for everyone. So whenever you get on a bus, you get on the tram, you get on the local train, it's free. Why did they do that? Because, well, first of all, they were not earning enough money. The whole thing was losing money anyway. Because they have like buses every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, the bus drivers are paid very well, or the buses are new, they're electric or hybrid. It's beautiful. And the ticket used to cost €2. This was financially completely unsustainable. So the government said, okay, let's give this for free to the people and see what happens. What happened is that a lot of people who couldn't find a parking space in the center of Luxembourg gave up their cars and started riding the electric buses. I drove my 4,000cc car to come here today. I drove from Vula. Okay, I've converted it to liquid natural gas, which is a little better. But I drove from Vula to here, because if I wanted to take a bus to come here, it would take me 3 days. And probably I would come here and I would smell really funky. So one part is consumer behavior, and that starts with education. My generation was not educated on sustainability. This generation has to be educated on sustainability, the generation of the school. And the other part, though, is what your government is doing, because how citizens act also has to do with how your government acts. And if my government puts a blue recycling bin and a green recycling bin on the street 24 hours a day, yeah, it's bound that somebody's going to drop the wrong thing in the blue bin and it's going to go to waste, and then it's going to, we need better planning. And that can only happen in local government, in municipalities, and in central government. And we don't seem to have that. So education and government is two things we're lacking in this country.
That you're absolutely right, and we faced that recently. You want to do things, and organizations want to do things, and you cannot go through because of the lack of infrastructure. So this is also pretty important. Mr. Evach mentioned earlier education. So, Stella?
Yes. I will agree and disagree with some of the things that they were said. I will share my experience from the contact with the young generation, with the contact that I have every year for the past few years, every day, sorry, for the past few years. I would say that there is change, that children of today, our students today, are very different. They have very different perceptions and very different behavior, more environmentally friendly behavior, more sustainable behavior in comparison to students 5 years ago. I'm not talking about our generation, I'm not talking about when I was a student, I'm talking about the same generation with a few years gap. Today I see people who are around their 20s, that they are much more aware. They are engaged into sustainable practices. They want to learn more. They want to be part of the solution. Of course, this is not happening by chance. There are many reasons behind that. One reason is education. There is the realization that we must do something from early ages. So subjects that are related to sustainability, to environment, to equity, they have been introduced even in primary schools in a very different and new way, innovative way, in comparison to how those issues and concepts were taught 5 and 10 years back. There are even new subjects in primary school, in secondary school, that they relate to sustainability. There are subjects that they try to teach concepts in a holistic and in an interdisciplinary way, rather than individual disciplines. There is the need for all of us to change, because we face the problems. Of course, we are all witnesses of climate change. We're experiencing climate change. Something that I very often say to my students when I was studying, I'm an environmental scientist, and I was studying this topic in the 1990s in Scotland. There were many more deniers of climate change than the people who would talk about climate change. And all of us who were studying environment, we were considered like the crazy tree huggers, that we are romantics, we are the neo-hippies, and we could not be taken very seriously. This concept, this perception has changed today. And it has changed, unfortunately, in a violent way. It has changed because we face the problems. So everybody accepts that climate change is here. Everybody feels that they have to do something, they have to be part of the solution, and this has affected opinions and it has affected behavior. We see that the global governance is changing. Regulations are here. We have regulations. At least here in European Union, we have very good frameworks for sustainability and for the protection of nature, environment, and the planet. We have regulations, we have legislation, we have the Green Deal, which is a very big priority of European Union that emphasizes on how are we going to live better under the conditions of climate change, how are we going to combat climate change, also addressing the concept of circular economy, of reducing our greenhouse gases. We have investment priorities and research priorities in European Union that they are related to those issues. The biggest funds in European Union go to environmental protection, to protection of the planet and to climate change. We have climate laws in all European countries. We have the very big research programs of Horizon, which are focusing a lot on social and environmental aspects. We are talking about huge amounts of money that they are given to countries, organizations, several partners. We have the framework of ESGs that was mentioned earlier that comes to replace the CSR. It is a more concrete framework with clear indicators for businesses. So there is a regulation, and there is a regulation to which Greece also has to adapt. The problem in this country is implementation, is not regulation. We have the framework, we need to work more on implementation at governmental level, at state level, I would say, not governmental, not to be misinterpreted, at state level, but also at individual level. At the level that is related to our work, to our businesses, to our investments, to our everyday work and output that we try to have through our jobs. So it is mainly implementation and bringing people together towards this line.
There is hope after all, but we have a long way to go. Let's hope that Greece stops being the last in adapting EU regulations and move a bit forward more quickly. One last comment from everyone. Mr. Bach.
So, just a quick question here. Can you raise your hand if you're under 30? Perfect. Okay. All right, so whoever raises your hands, you're going to be the ones who are going to face all the problems that we are creating today. Okay? Because 30 years from now, I'll be in my 80s. I don't know if I'm going to be around, but 30 years from now, you're going to be in your 60s or 50s, and you're going to be facing all the big problems around climate change on this planet. So if you raise your hand, you are the ones who now have the power, and not just the power, but the mandate to make the changes necessary so that climate change doesn't go over 2 degrees. Because, you know, if you read, and one of the things you should all do is read about climate change, educate yourselves about climate change. Read anything you can get your hands on from credible sources on climate change, books. Like, I recently read Bill Gates' book, and it's incredible, it's great. I highly recommend it. So instead of, you know, watching too much Survivor or whatever people watch nowadays, spend a few hours a week reading books about climate change and understanding what's happening. And it's the small things that will make the difference. Because if we all make small little changes in our life, in the way we dress ourselves, in the way we eat less meat, buy less Zara, buy more B Corp products. I mean, Pivita has great products and it's a B corporation, so already you have a seal of approval. Drink Nespresso if you drink coffee. You know, support companies that are doing the right thing, and they're doing it certifiably, not claiming they're doing the right thing. Learn what greenwashing is. Understand greenwashing and avoid it. You know, there's the biggest plastic polluter on the planet, a company that makes soft drinks, you know, has committed to be plastic free by 2030, 20. I don't care what they're going to do 20 years from now. We're sinking in plastic now. You know, address the issue today. It's going to cost more money, yes, and the shareholders are going to lose a little bit. So, but address it now. So, it's better to do a few things a little better. Don't try to do everything perfectly. but we all have a responsibility to make a little change. If we don't, all together, we're all going to sink together. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Iliopoulos, one last advice, comment?
I agree with everything you said. Perfectly said. And you guys have been a great audience. And this has been a great discussion. Now, the only thing I want to add is that each one of us potentially holds in his hands a great power. There's a great potential in each person anywhere. The thing is to tap this potential, to believe that you are capable to create an effect, and to create the effect that you want to create, like to go ahead and do it, find the courage, be the change. I'm not necessarily advising everyone to like create a new movement or open a new organization like we do in Greece, you know, like every person has a company. No. If you find something that represents your ideals and your beliefs and you see that they're doing a good job, support them, be a part of them. I would personally do that. Like if I could find somebody doing what we were doing 4 years ago, I didn't have any crazy desires to create something. You know, I was living a perfectly fine life with my businesses, but I couldn't find it, so I had to do it. Now, so the last comment I have to say is that the only thing you can do that is the most strong of everything is do nothing. So do anything towards the direction that you feel this world has to change.
This is great and inspiring. So Deree?
Actually, I had something completely different in my mind for the closing remarks, but Albertos, besides a great businessman and speaker, is also an influencer. I don't know if you are active on social media, but I would like to refer to the results of research, a recent research in 344 European companies from three different sectors, including a cosmetic sector. And the results are quite shocking because the European Commission published that 59% of these companies could not provide support documentation to support their sustainability claims. The claims they made on social media, on LinkedIn, on website, wherever. And at the same time, the European Commission has reasons to believe that 42% of these companies reach or exceed the limits of greenwashing. You know, fake news, fake facts, fake indicators, misleading KPIs, fake sustainability claims do not help the companies, do not help sustainability, do not help societies. Paul Polman recently wrote an amazing book. I strongly suggest you to buy it online and read it. He talks about net positive companies. I don't know if Planet Foods, right, is a net positive company. Net positive companies, according to Paul Polman, are the companies who give more than they take. I'm not sure if today's business model can afford companies, net positive companies, but I am pretty confident that there are a few companies out there that they do not want to be the best in the world, but to become the best for the world. This is the message that unites all the big companies worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you. Stella?
Yes. What to say? I will also say a few things based on what it was said before. I will start with the greenwashing, a very, very big issue. Greenwashing and fake news. They are all around us. There were a lot of fake news that were going around, not only regarding companies, but also in the past 2 years regarding the pandemic. There was this huge wrong belief that the planet had benefited from the pandemic. maybe for 1 month of the strict lockdown we had a drop in the air pollutants and the level of air pollutants, but this was accelerated once the strict lockdown went away, because then we were all encouraged to use our own car and drive our own car with 1 person in it or with 2 persons. Heating was not used in central buildings, but we had decentralized heating sources all around Athens, if we talk about this city. So we had more air conditions working than we would have had if people were working in their own jobs inside their buildings. The plastic pollution accelerated. We had tons of plastics that ended up in the oceans, masks, single-use items which cannot be recycled, and they harm the environment and the society to a very big extent. And still we could hear about news fake news that the environment had benefited from the pandemic. So why do I mention all this? Again, the answer to everything is education. Not just formal education. Here at ACG we offer formal education, but our personal education is our own hands. So we all have to search for answers, to search for truth, to read books, be very selective on what we read, what we choose to read, what we choose to believe more than what we read. So we all have to be alert to identify incidences of greenwashing, of fake news, to identify the truth and identify the way to act. And of course, we have to try and do things. Every little matters on this planet. We are 8 billion people. If each of us is doing a little bit, a small thing, all the 8 billion efforts make a huge effort to make our life on this planet better. So that would be my message for the end.
Thank you. Of course, we should stop being only anthropocentric and be more all species-centric, because we must not forget that we are not only, humans are not only the ones that occupy this planet. So I would like to thank each one of you and all of you for this fruitful discussion, and I hope we have in the future more opportunities to follow up on this. So at this point, I would like to call on the stage the speakers of the second panel. They will talk to you about circular economy and how to turn circular.
Okay, so I'm Giorgos Athanasopoulos. I'm the moderator for this panel, and I am the founder of monopeto.gr, a Greek website about bespoke tailoring, circular economy, and all the above. Together we have, let me get my cheat sheet, Dr. Yannis Vikas, a senior expert in the field of sustainability and social economy. Stavros Tsobanidis, founder and managing partner in PHEE, and I think via internet is joining us Xherετισμοί, head of Southeast Europe office, Eunomia, and Styliani Paraska, president of Fashion Revolution Luxembourg. I don't know if we see these ladies. Anyway, gentlemen, tell us something about yourself, make a little who you are and what you do.
I am Yannis Vikas. I am a course instructor here at the American College of Greece, courses of social economy and entrepreneurship and sustainable finance and investing. I'm also a postdoc researcher, but I have been actively involved in the last years in the support of initiatives in the field of social and green entrepreneurship.
So, hello, good morning all. My name is Stavros Tsobanidis. I want to thank you, Hadzidakis Foundation and American College of Greece, for this invitation. It's my honor being here and speaking to you today. My background is on finance. I studied finance on the University of Piraeus, but in the second year of my studies, I started searching about entrepreneurship in Greece. And in one TEDx talk back in 2013, which I saw on YouTube while searching about entrepreneurship and the first startups in Greece, I hear a story from Paul Morphidis. I'm sure you are aware, and his daughter will speak, I think, in the next panel. Paul talked about the seagrass and the huge quantities of seagrass that are available across the Mediterranean coastal areas, and make a call to, an open call to the audience, start acting, use this raw material, which is one of, in my opinion, of the biggest wealth for Greece, upcycle it and create something new. This was a turning point for me. I was really inspired, and I took the decision to found FI, which is now developing composite materials, novel composite materials, by upcycling a different range of natural residues that are massively available in order not to be disposed to landfills, but gain a second life and be in our interiors, in our products, place them in our everyday life. Because I think that the new materials and the new raw materials that will substitute the existing ones is the biggest starting point regarding sustainability and circular economy. I will tell a little bit more. And thank you again for being here.
So I would like to mention some of the initiatives.
We have Ms. Xara here and Ms. Tiliani Paraska with us via internet. Welcome, ladies.
Nice to be with you. Nice to meet you.
It's okay, the sound is okay, the image is okay. I'm Yorgos, hello. And Mr. Stavros, Mr. Tsobanidis, I'm sorry, please go on.
Yes. So, even though Professor Apostolaki has named various actions in the field of sustainability that the American College of Greece has done in the past years, it's also important to mention some of the initiatives in the field of circular economy that relate more with the concept of circular economy. So apart from the courses that are that prioritize circular economy, like the program of environmental studies or the minor of sustainable finance and economics, where I also happen to teach, it's also important to mention some initiatives like the food waste campaign, a campaign about the composting food waste here in the campus. There is an initiative in regards to the farmers market, something that runs along with the NGO Borume. So it runs since 2018, and volunteers from the American College of Greece collect fruits and vegetables from farmer markets, mostly in Holargos and Palini, and those things are being given to humanitarian organizations and other vulnerable groups. There are also programs within the college, like the reduction in the use of single-use plastics. Also, a program Reduce, Reuse and Recycle that has to do with using second-hand furniture and personal computers also. And also in the fields of operations here in the college, it's important to mention the use of water from the pool in order to water the gardens. So certainly there are a lot of initiatives that relate to circular economy and that are part of the so-called holistic approach about sustainability. It's really important also to mention that all those there are sustainability reporting standards and certifications that are being followed. So within the website, anybody can acquire a lot of information about those specific actions that happen in American college with specific indicators. So, yes.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Xherετισμοί.
Yes, hello, hi everyone, and thank you very much also to the Foundation and Deree College for the invitation. I've been listening with a lot of interest to the previous also panel discussing about sustainability regulation, and I think from our perspective, I represent a research and consulting company. It's an international consultancy based at the moment in Athens. We have offices also in Brussels, in Denmark, in the US, and New Zealand as well. And I would say that we're in the core part of circular economy. We work a lot with the European Commission on shaping policy through evidence-based work. There is a lot of, and it's already been mentioned, there's a lot of current developments on policy level. So we recently had, back in March, the adoption of the adoption of the textile strategy, and before that, a couple of years ago, we had the adoption of the Circular Economy Action Plan. And I think within this action plan, we have a wide range of different policy areas, looking from all the way from production, eco-design, all the way to consumption and waste. And I think the most important part is to understand also and to facilitate how the different steps can be followed on, starting from national governments all the way to businesses, obviously down to consumers, and as already been said, education is a major aspect. So we know we are, in Europe, we're consuming a vast amount of products and goods and services. It's interesting that also we have been looking at green public procurement and green procurement much more heavily than we used to. And I think an area that I would say Unomi is certainly focusing on, along with either national governments or private businesses, organizations and universities, is the part on the waste consumption. So how do you actually reduce the waste that you produce in the first place? How do you improve your value chain? But also, how do you understand what other actions you can take? Is it about reuse? Is it about refurbishing, remanufacturing, and coming down all the way to reducing the waste that ends up in landfill? And we know very well that Greece is having a major problem at the moment. We're landfilling more than 80%, so we definitely need to take some action here and understand what are the different areas we can improve.
Thank you very much. Ms. Paraska, I have to say I'm a big fan of your work in the organization, and the organization as a whole. It's very interesting.
Thank you. So yes, there is a Fashion Revolution office in Greece, which is doing a great job as well. Fiori, my fellow president. I have been living the past decade in Luxembourg though, and I have actually brought the movement over there because it was not present yet when I thought, like, yeah, we need to do this. I have been doing a lot in fashion, even before I go to Luxembourg though. I was working as a fashion designer in Greece, in a brand that is actually, that was very active in upcycling at the time, and now is using natural fabrics exclusively. So in Luxembourg, I started animating upcycling workshops. That is kind of informal education, and I saw the interest, and I saw how everybody could actually understand the problem better by using their hands and by seeing, you know, that we are giving a new life to a product that was about to become waste. So that's how it started, and then we brought Fashion Revolution in Luxembourg. We were hosting a lot of events, also swap events. I think this is a very good practice in the fashion industry, and not only in the industry, in our everyday lives actually, just exchanging clothes or even looking in the wardrobes of our moms, our like grandmothers, or whoever else. And also, of course, secondhand. Yeah, I'm only supposed to say what I'm doing, right? Or what Fashion Revolution is doing. Anyways, a lot of things are happening in fashion, in the fashion sector, in the, let's say, the sustainable and circular fashion sector in Luxembourg now, and I have a better knowledge there. After our movement came in play, we had then funding from the government. They started another local campaign. They have a pop-up downtown, and they are operating like they are selling better products, products that have a social background, that are upcycled, that are made from better materials, also second-hand. So a lot of buzz over there. At the same time, it's not mainstream, and that's what we are trying to achieve with Fashion Revolution. Of course, besides improving working conditions, bringing transparency in the fashion industry, also making this better fashion, this slow fashion, more mainstream, I would say, because it's necessary.
First, I want to say that I hate fashion. I'm all about classic style, and I don't know what is in fashion today. But I know where my clothes are made and who made my clothes. And I think that's very important. I know by the first name everybody who made my jacket, my shirt, and I think that is how circular economy in the fashion industry should work. You should know the person who makes your clothes, the person, what kind of material he uses or she uses, and we should all go back to our tailors, our modistes, I don't remember the English words for this one, and this is my point of view.
Thank you, but exactly, and I didn't come into this. The two main questions of Fashion Revolution is who made my clothes and what's in my clothes. These, as you mentioned, are the most essential aspects to know what is the textile, what fiber is the clothing produced from, and who is producing the clothes.
Yeah. So, let's talk about FI. What FI does?
So FI has developed and patented a manufacturing technology that starts from receiving feedstocks, bio-residues that are, as I told before, massively available, not across the coastal areas. You know, who knows FI? Please raise your hands. Only 3, 4, 5. Okay, we can do better, I think. Thank you for knowing what we do. So yeah, we started back in 2015 with a clear vision of giving a second life to Posidonia residues. I'm speaking about seagrass. I'm sure that you're aware of them. You have sold them across the coastal areas. We identified the problem with the waste. It's not about waste, with the coastal management of the dead leaves of Posidonia that are washed up with energy coming from waves to the coastal areas. We saw that municipalities collect them and unfortunately burden them to landfills, so they dispose them as a waste. And we saw a raw material, not a waste, on that. What's the impact of disposing a natural residue to landfills? The impact number one is the social purpose, which is that we spend, on average, every coastal municipality spends every year 25,000 euro for burdening them to landfills. So they are paying the 30 euro gate fee that we have in Greek landfills, and on average they have 800 to 1,000 tons of this residue on each coastal municipalities across Greece. So this is the social impact of burdening, but of course it's an environmental impact of burdening, which is the greenhouse gas emissions that are coming from landfills. According to research, 340 cubic meters of methane are being coming from landfills when we burden 1 ton of this type of residues. So we saw this problem and we designed a technology that instead of disposing them to landfills, we came up to municipalities and proposed them, okay, we will create a technology that will upcycle them, because we are doing upcycling and not recycling our technology. We need to receive them please bring it to our small factory, and we will upcycle them, we will process them at the first level, we will put the humidity off, we will clean them, we will separate them, and we will have a new raw material ready to be processed. And here is where we came. We found a way to upcycle them efficiently as a fillers to composite materials. I don't know if you're aware about composite materials. Composite materials are types of materials that are consist of two different ingredients. The one is the filler, which we use the residues, the Posidonia residues, and the other is the thermoset bio-based resin system that we compound them together in order to create our materials, which is produced in seeds. They are panels, surfaces, mainly decorative surfaces that have commercial applications in construction, mainly in interior design, architecture, in furniture applications, which is our main target market right now. But of course, for a small startup back in 2016 that we started, in order to go and open this market, we started commercialization with products. We have a model that we will give to other brands and manufacturing companies the raw material, the fee boards, in order to create collections of products. So until today, potentially you know fee about your products, the eyewear collection, accessories, which of course our materials have applications, but right now we are targeting this market, a new market, and moreover, due to the past 2 years, we developed with the same technology some new raw materials that I'm happy to share with you today. The one is being produced by upcycling Nespresso spent coffee grounds from their capsules. I'm sure you're aware of the reverse recycling scheme of Nespresso around Europe. We have the idea to tell them that apart from disposing them as a compost, we can take the spent coffee grounds, use it in our technology, and use it as a filler for a new raw material based on your coffee. And in 2 months, we were launching the first product that we designed, that we are producing for them, for the Greek market, which is made from the coffee board, which is the new raw material based on spent coffee grounds. We are working closely with Nespresso and with Vivartia Group, mainly with Everest. Potentially, you have seen some stands in the retail produced with their spent coffee grounds. Again, we help them create the closed loop reverse logistic recycling scheme for the coffee grounds, and we develop the material that can be used again in their value chain. And in my opinion, circular economy, which is our topic, is starting from reusing the waste producer, reusing his residue again in his value chain. And I think it's very educational for other industries to follow about the waste that they are producing. Fashion industry has already established those type of initiatives. And yes, we are developing those materials, we are producing them in Patras. We have a downsized production line in Patras, and happy to respond and more about how you can utilize our materials in your projects, and to present some of them earlier in our small stand back there.
Maybe in function, accessories or something else.
There's a Greek fashion brand that creates handles for women bags with our materials. Yes,
that's nice. So
we are sorted.
Let's break down circular economy. What does it mean to the average guy? And how can he implement it in his life?
Well, first of all, we are talking about a single, let's say, concept from getting over the typical model of producing, using and disposing something to finding a new use for this particular element and product. So trying to make a circle, reusing, recycling, all of those concepts are related with the concept of circular economy. We can see various interesting examples, let's say in the field of, let's start from industry, for example. The concept of industrial symbiosis, industrial ecology, where one enterprise is using the byproduct of another enterprise as an input. So this creates actually an eco-industrial park, an eco-industrial ecosystem, let's say, within this industry. There's certainly a lot of ways also in the everyday life, let's say, when we just prefer to use a reused glass when we to drink our coffee or to drink our water. So there are ways of expressing circular economy both as a citizen, but we also see it in the corporate world, and there are various examples that we can see in the field. Actually, it's fee, for example, fee is one of the good practices that we express as an example in the field of social economy and green entrepreneurship. And there are actually a lot of interesting other concepts to mention in those as good practices, starting also from other examples of Restia, a social enterprise that is actually using the human hair and the furs of animals in order to create to gather oil from pollution in the sea. So they make specific filters out of human hair. The person who thought about it is a hairdresser. So we also know Σχεδία magazine that now they try to create products out of the street paper that they are actually not sold. There are various examples that we see out there, and sometimes we tend to not to pay attention to them. But there's definitely a lot of examples that we all should relate as citizens, but also to see them in the corporate world, in the field of circular economy.
Thank you very much. Ms. Xherou, what does Eunomia do in the circular economy department?
Excuse me, could you repeat this? Because I couldn't hear you very well.
Let's talk about Eunomia. You listen?
Yes, okay. So, in terms of what we do, you can hear me well because I think the
we have a trouble in You can listen?
Yes, I can hear you now. I think the internet connection is a bit unstable. That's what it's giving me a message, but I can hear you well. So in terms of what Eunomia does within the circular economy, let's say spectrum, I think I mentioned earlier that we work a lot with the European Commission on shaping policy, either that falls under the Circular Economy Action Plan. So we developed a study where we looked at different range of product categories, looking at textiles, looking at toys, electronics, looking at packaging and construction products. And we looked at the different hotspots identified within the European Union. We looked at the similarity within this product category, and then we came up with a number of recommendations, as well as sort of implementation plans for these industry areas. And that formed part of the EU Circular Economy Action Plan. It was also the initial stage of starting to understand better how textiles are being treated also within the European Union. We also work a lot with national governments. So when the policy is out, we work a lot on the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which in fact is about banning a number of different product categories when it comes to single-use plastics, phasing them out from the market, but also finding alternatives. So we've done impact assessments to understand how these alternatives can be phased into the market by still providing a competitive advantage to the industry. And obviously looking at reducing the environmental impact of those products. We've done a number of studies in reduced plastic pollution well, and I think throughout this this range of different studies, we also produced on local governments came to either the local waste management or now there is a lines, especially in Greece with the new circular economy strategy that was actually adopted a couple of months ago. We are looking to support and help definitely regional and local governments to understand how they can go about it. It's about understanding we've seen, of course, your waste can be the first, but also very difficult task here in Greece. Reusing, which is a very, very important part, and I know also in the fashion industry is also very key. Understanding also how you can recycle better. First of all, we know that textiles globally get recycled only at 1%, so it's a very, very small percentage. And we also look at how materials are being used within, specific borders. So we currently see, for example, huge production, if we move away from the textiles, of lithium outside the EU, that we need to actually consume, and we need to, let's say, use lithium within our product categories here in the European Union. But we know that this is actually a problem. We're not recycling lithium here, but there are many different parameters to take into consideration. So I would say that we try to work both with the decision-making policymakers and the regional and local governments to help policy being implemented. And I think, as it was said earlier, it is the most difficult task here in Greece. Regulations are out there. There are many different requirements, many different articles, but implementing such articles in the right way is the hardest part, and I'm guessing most of people would agree. And I would say that there are definitely steps. We've seen definitely a lot of steps happening and moving forward. We did a study on specifically on introducing a new scheme, which is about producers pay for the amount of material and of specifically of units they put into the national, into the Greek market. And this is called Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme, and it's applied in out of member states. Actually, it is obligatory across the EU for different types of materials. So, for example, textiles is one that we have seen the so-called Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme being implemented in France, and it's a joint system. So we want to be able to bring it to Greece because there is now a new bid for all EU member states to be able to collect, for example, textiles by 2025 and sustainably also manage the waste of those textiles. So it's important to identify how we will do that. So this is one of the ways we are supporting also the ministry. We've done this study, and also regional and local governments to understand how much they produce and how they can actually reduce the consumption and manage it more sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Paraska, let's talk about, it's a world trend in these days. We buy a garment, we wear it 1 or 2, 3 times, and then we throw it away. Okay, that wasn't the idea when our parents lived. The garments were expensive, they were hard to make, and you used to take care of the garments so they can last longer, and maybe you can pass it down to your son or your daughter or somebody else in the family. In our days, this thing has, there's no such thing. How can the fashion industry become more circular?
Great. Thank you for putting this up. And yes, as you said, in our parents and grandparents' times, yes, exactly, clothes were hard to make and hard to break as well. They were really durable, and that aspect has been gone for a while. What you mentioned, yes, is the fast fashion strategy. Unfortunately, it's a business model. All brands currently, or most of them, are operating by this system. Fast fashion business model means producing the cheapest possible garments in massive production and selling them for as cheap as possible, and then throwing them exactly after a couple of times of wear because they cannot last longer anyways. How can we make this scheme better? Well, first of all, obviously by changing the business model, And this is something that we see happening today, like really slow steps, but let's hope they are steady steps. There are a lot of startups, so the easiest thing right now is to look at startups, to look at new companies that have circularity in their DNA. It's very hard right now for the huge companies that started using the fast fashion model, which is unsustainable, to turn them around and make them sustainable. I mean, they're doing a lot of steps. So, okay, let's explain this first. There are steps being made also with fast fashion brands. They are trying to sell second-hand, for instance, and there is a big trend now in that sector, on the luxury resale sector, in second-hand sector in general. A lot of platforms like Vinted, this is a European unicorn startup, the Real, American platform, Bestia Collective, this is a French startup, amazing startup, founded by two women also, really great, inspiring. So a lot of brands are collaborating with these platforms to sell their clothes that are used after they are used by the first user, let's say, to have them in a resale platform and to, of course, guarantee that they are real, that they are in good condition, that they are like authentic, let's say. So this is a good first step by big brands. Unfortunately, probably they are slower in different areas, like working conditions, but then again, okay, this is in general part of sustainability, but not with circularity. Another aspect is, of course, materials. We have seen some improvement. There are a few brands, or most of the brands actually, and this many times, like quite often, is used as a greenwashing technique. Many brands, even the worst, are using better textiles for a few lines, for only a few collections, not for the whole production. And they are marketing them, and they are saying, we have a new green line, we have an eco line. Okay, greenwashing is like horrible, obviously. There are also laws now to protect the consumer. But if all these big brands would focus on materials and working conditions at the same time, and also on take-back schemes, I mean, and this is again the last resort, so recycling is the last resort. The first thing brands should do are basically design better. Design for disassembly, design for longer life. Disassembly, I mean, yeah, it sounds as it belongs to more to technology than to fashion, but a garment also can be disassembled in a way to be recycled better. Like buttons, threads, textile, and then zippers, etc. There is a certain way that you can design a clothing to be disassembled and to be recycled, probably to 100%, even not to 100%, but to, let's say, close to that. Also, giving more money to R&D, research and development, is right now not there yet to support a circular fashion system. Recycling is not as advanced right now. We cannot recycle most of the garments. The garments that are not monomaterial, that are mixed, cannot be recycled at this point. For now, what we are saying is that we need to use textiles that are 100% cotton, 100% linen, and this way we can assure that they can be recycled. But of course, we need to first build the take-back systems. So each brand either has to outsource this to a brand that can do it better than them, or build their own take-back system, give some incentives to consumers, etc., and tell them to bring back the clothes after they have worn them and they don't want to keep them any longer, to make them textiles again. And this is a big part of circularity, where repair is another part of circularity, of course, and that goes to the consumer side. When the consumer has a button missing, sees a hole or something, or he wants to alter the garment, he somehow needs the education, I would say, first, and he needs to be willing not to just throw away the garment, but to spend a bit more time and just little bit more money, let's say, to repair it and to wear it again. And we need to build this connection, this sentimental connection with our clothes. You know, like Frida, we love our clothes and we want to keep them longer. We want to live, you know, adventures with them and have memories with them and not have them like just for one-off and that's it. Yeah, I think I should stop. I could talk this forever.
Thank you very much. A lot of times young men ask me, okay, let's go bespoke, let's go all natural in our garments, but it's expensive, you know. They think that a bespoke jacket costs about 2,000 or 3,000 euros. That's not the case. But there's another solution. Classic style never goes out of fashion. So you can go and get second-hand garments. Get a great jacket, a great tweed jacket, let's say, that has been tailored in the 1970s and is just as new today. It's totally in fashion. Let's talk about Greece and how Greece is treating you as a startup in this field. Yes.
For me, it's not about Greece. When you are designing and running a company, you have always to find a way in your strategy to be up and running. Of course, we started back in 2015, where startups was, and the industry was at its beginning. So I think that the past years there are many interesting initiatives that are trying to help and support. I want to be extremely honest that we are from the first days that we pitched our idea to create new materials. I think that I'm lucky that I found the supporters, foundations in Greece, startup awards, contests that help us raise a first amount of money to do our R&D and being able to run the company. Because we started from a private R&D, we didn't have anything, only one idea. And together with my co-founder, which is a mechanical engineer expert on composites, we started from a garage of my grandfather in Patras and set up the whole technology online. So I think in Greece there are many good things, many others. The taxation is on a very good stage right now, but Greece is a small market for us. And this is the main problem I can share with you today, that still the industry is not educated, of course, and not open to use, let's say, bio-based materials. And in my opinion, this is the biggest problem for small startups on this sector, that they are trying to enter the market, they are trying to find the cash flow in order to, let's say, invest in R&D, optimize their strategy, design new products based on the feedback from the clients. And the problem is that if the market that you're acting can't support you, you have two options. Either go away, go abroad, and let's say design business development only to be on Central Europe or where your target market is. And this is a problem that we are currently facing. That's all for me regarding Greece and the circular economy. Of course, there are many interesting initiatives, projects that are now up and running. I think that circularity is all about design. And when you are circularity, and in my industry of materials, starting from feedstocks, and it's very important to secure the feedstocks and the new bio-based value chains in order our technology to make sense for the client, for the espresso. We are not alone. There's a waste management company that taking the capsules, separating the coffee from the aluminium. This is all about collaborations. We have the solution of creating unique materials that can bring it back to life, but we need to collaborate. In Greece, we are still not collaborating, and this is not changing in my opinion. And as I also heard, and I'm now closing, from the previous panel, we are still in Greece, don't have any legislation regarding sustainability. 2 years ago, I was invited from a Ministry of Environment here in Greece and told me that we are currently establishing the green sourcing about the raw materials that we will use in the public spaces and the public areas. I don't know about you, I read the 2 weeks ago environmental law in Greece, and still I didn't read one metric, any metrics, no numbers, how you can measure your impact with a law when you don't have metrics, and still we don't do anything on green supply. When you have green raw materials in Greece, you're seeing today what happens with the cost of raw materials and all the problem with logistics, and you are not trying to set up a strategy that I will source from local producers in order to further decrease my environmental footprint and create a market. This is not sustainable. So, in my opinion, there's a total lack of strategy still for this country in all of the industries. Of course, we have tourism, of course, we have shipping, which is the two main industries, but in my opinion, we still run out of strategy. We don't have strategy, and this is a problem that will not make entrepreneurship, circularity, sustainability sustainable for the next year.
Yeah. And I think Dr. Vikas could add on this.
Yes, actually, the one thing is if something exists, if an action plan exists. The second thing is how all these things are going to be implemented. So, starting from a European level. Since 2020 there is an EU action plan on circular economy, focusing on various sectors and fields that have a higher environmental burden, let's say, in the field, and things could be done like electronics, vehicles, plastics, food and waste. Now in Greece we had a strategic plan since 2018 from the Ministry of Energy and Environment. Now in 2020, in November 2021, actually a new national action plan on circular economy was being made and encompassed the European direction. Focusing on various fields, I think they're a bit generic at this level, so focusing on sustainable consumption, on sustainable production, so in the field of eco-labeling, eco-certification, namely some issues, namely the things on industrial symbiosis that I mentioned earlier. But the specific actions that have been done, I could say that it's the law of 2020 on single use of plastics, reducing the single-use plastics. There is an action plan on green public procurement, but it's things to be done. We have actually the social public procurement, so public procurement that has clauses, social clauses that, let's say, favors social enterprises that integrate people from vulnerable groups exists, but for green public procurement we don't have yet these clauses. They say that they are starting to encompassing them in various public, let's say, competition where someone can apply. It's also important to mention that in this action plan there are some specifications on prioritizing, let's say, fields of circular economy in the National Strategic Reference Framework, in the new ESPA. And there have been something has been done also in the field of eco-labeling in general. But an important thing also on ESGs, on the field of circular economy is that what will be, let's say, what happens if you don't do it, in a way. It's like in a sort of an action plan. Most of those actions are not then enforced in legislation, they're just strategic plans. So this is also a thing to be seen, what will be done if someone does not comply with those regulations. But certainly the last years, there have been at least the last 3 years sort of actions also in the field of circular economy. I don't know if they help you, but they have started at least to be, to exist over there.
I think that they are translating in Greece the things coming from EU, papers coming from EU, mainly from European Green Deal, that of course, has specific metrics for many industries. But okay, of course, the decarbonization is one of the most critical parts, but it's not only decarbonization from transportation and decarbonization from energy production. There are also the raw materials, which is huge, in my opinion, it's a huge impact on the environment and on the human's health, because something that is very important, and I'm sorry for something that is very important speaking about circular economy and new materials is that, and it all starts from the design of a material. It doesn't make sense only to take a bioresidue and create a material. You have to design a material that is toxic-free. Toxicity in our interiors is a very important reason of cancers for today. I'm sure you're aware of formaldehydes that are mainly used for the production of composite parts like wooden boards, acoustic panels, and all this stuff. So circularity and sustainability, which is our main topic today, is changing not only the raw materials and not subsidizing plastics, but is also designing human healthy and untoxic raw materials, which is something it's really important to have in mind when you are reading about something that says that it's sustainable. Read about the toxicity, read about the ingredients that they have, because it's very important.
Miss Xherετου, Greece has a long way to go for circular economy?
I'm sorry, again, I missed your question at the beginning of the question. Can you
Greece has a long way to go for circular economy.
Yeah, so I've been listening to the other panelists, and it's really interesting because I come from more of a maybe research and let's say report-related sort of background, research and evidence-based, and I would say that yes, definitely Greece has a long way to go. We talked about having some policies in place, but needing more in terms of implementation. But I would say that before we even answer this question, the first question is whether the EU has set up enough, let's say, communication and guidance when it comes to new regulation and Commission decisions and directives that are being released from Brussels. So I would say that it happens many times that these regulations and directives are being released. They have been worked out quite a long time before they've clearly been released with loads of consultations. But when they come out and the member states have to go and adopt and implement, I think what sometimes is lacking is the how, the way it's going to be implemented, and especially when you're talking about countries that are not Germany and France and Sweden and Belgium. We're talking about in the waste sector, we call them the backlagging countries. So countries that we have a longer way to go because we have been using our landfill sites for a very long time. We have been consuming maybe around the same pace, but actually we haven't been very good at understanding how we better use our resources. And I think transparency is another issue. So we tend to maybe look at Greece and blame it very quickly. But I would say that we need to be very careful also at how the guidance and all the communication is coming out from the EU, and making sure that we've got the right tools. And when all these ESPA and new funding schemes and mechanisms are actually released, it's great. But when you speak to businesses and also SMEs, and 99% of the businesses in Greece are SMEs, in fact, it seems to hear that they don't have access to funding. They don't have access to those financial mechanisms. And you wonder, what is the best way? Is it best to go then back? You have to do this. There's a top-down approach, but there's a bottom-up approach as well. You need to speak to either your regional, your local, your regional, or your national authority, the focal point, understand how you can better access that funding. And sometimes it's not even that possible. And obviously I don't want to sound gloomy or negative. I think we have, and Greece has shown, we've done a study for SEPAN, which is the Federation of Recycling Industries in Greece. And We have seen case studies, very good examples in the food waste sector for municipalities in Attica regions like is one, but now there are many, many more. We're looking also at what the retail sector is doing in reducing food, but also, in fact, making sure that they don't even purchase huge amounts when it comes to when they reach their stores. And making sure that they can do something about it, and there are a lot of organizations dealing also with the unwanted food. There's a lot going on in packaging. In the packaging sector, there's new guidance from the European Commission on better design of packaging, lower weight, better recyclable material, obviously, to be able to recycle 100%, and of course, making sure that there are the right containers and the right infrastructure to take those waste streams, packaging, for reprocessing. However, in Greece, for example, in the packaging sector, the larger companies, the bigger brands are the ones at the moment that we see they're making an impact. However, it's interesting also to see that there are smaller ones that they're now coming out. They're trying to also establish some funding, and you see, for example, more sustainable, and this is just one example, straws made out of, which is called, I can use one of the names, which I find very interesting, called Staramaki, out of wheat. And they've got an incredible business model behind it. And they started really from scratch. Metal and steel, we do have good case studies and good examples for the recycling of steel and metal in Greece. Actually, we're one of the, I would say, sort of pioneers in that area. And also waste oil, which is another area that is growing. So I would say that, yes, it has a long way to go. I think we need to be even more critical with the way things are handed over to us. So we need to be more critical in when we either receive guidance or policy papers, etc., and understand how we can transpose that better and translate that into action. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Palaska, how can we make Greek men and women believe in second-hand clothes?
Well, we are having this discussion very often. You know what, the thing is, there's still a stigma in Greece. I'm not sure why exactly. Maybe because we are closer to times of very low income, to times of war, etc. I mean, closer than other countries, right? There is a stigma associated with second-hand, and people want to wear new, and they feel second-hand is like for poor people, which is totally not the case elsewhere.
How we have the expression of το σακάκι του μακαρίτη in Greece.
Huge challenge. You know what, this is changing through social media. So I think for new generations, this is becoming a trend as well in Greece, because of course they see it everywhere. They see even stars now. This is like a good example. Stars at Hollywood, let's say, they come to the red carpet and they make it a trend, they make it a statement to wear like a really nice dress, let's say, that they wore 10 years ago, now 10 years after. It's also a statement of showing how in shape they are 10 years after, so they can wear the same item. But it's also a statement, for instance, with Jane Fonda and a few others. It's a statement also for the environment, because there are some stars that are really activists and they really care for the planet, they care for the environment, and it's a way to show that there's no shame in wearing something twice. Because it's not only about secondhand, there is a shame right now in showing up to events and also showing up on social media wearing the same item twice. I'm sure you and me don't have this problem. I have been probably wearing this for I don't know how many years. But yeah, there is, this is a real problem in some other, let's say, ages or, yeah. How? I mean, it's tricky. I think definitely influencers and stars and all these people that have a following, they can help in making this more mainstream. Also more accessibility, obviously, because in Greece, I think we don't have so many shops that sell secondhand right now. You have many more Zara's and H&M's than anything else, actually. Also online, I see that online this is becoming a bit more popular. I see people selling their clothes on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, I think somehow accelerating these changes via education would be very important. For instance, we are going to schools in Luxembourg and we are explaining, I mean, they know already these things in Luxembourg, most of the young people, but we are organizing, some workshops, we're organizing swapping events, upcycling workshops, and showing the coolness, the cool part of being sustainable in fashion, of being circular, of being responsible, because this is actually being responsible towards our planet. So yes, I think combining the cool aspect of it and being educational but in a cool way, also utilizing figures that have power and that have following would be the way. And I don't know, TV is still a thing in Greece. I think if we saw this more on TV, I mean, I don't watch TV, but I think many people do.
Thank you very much all. I think that concludes our panel. It's time for a break, I think. And thank you very much all.
Speakers from the third panel, they will talk to you about sustainable fashion in the case of the Greek companies.
Hello, welcome. Welcome everyone, thank you for being here and staying with us. This is our last panel discussion. It's focused on zero waste in the fashion and beauty industries. And I don't want to tire you much because the flow was incredibly relaxing until now. I just want to share with you some staggering numbers, which, we've all been hearing that for the fashion industry and beauty industries are heavily polluting, but what does it mean really to be a heavy polluter nowadays? So the fashion industry accounts for approximately 2.1 billion tons of CO2 emissions per year, which means that this accounts for the 4% of the total annual global emissions. And when we talk about, Xherετισμοί in the last panel talked about textile circulation, I have to say that fashion nowadays accounts for approximately around 40 million tons of textile waste per year, which of course lands either in landfills or is incinerated. And talking about landfills, we had Stavros from the circular panel before talking about waste and the actual accumulation of waste and recycling of waste. What happens in Greece nowadays is that we are incredibly dependent on landfills. Jettisoning our waste on landfills has reached, in 2019, 70%, one of the highest percentages in Europe. So today we're lucky enough to have with us 4 brilliant speakers, representatives of different sectors of the fashion and beauty industries. And they're here to talk about the shift that's imperative and it needs to happen, and how we can reverse both of the industries' harmful environmental impact. In what ways, and how did they achieve that in a market that's lagging behind, which is the Greek market, of course. So allow me to introduce first, from the ladies, Ms. Deree, she's the marketing manager for the Balkans, the hair cluster of Avida, Estée Lauder companies. And on my left, I have a legendary figure of the fashion industry, Mr. Christos Petridis, Chief Creative Officer of Atelier Maison Faliakos, over 40 years of history. And then right over there, we have Emma Efmorthidi. She's the founder of EF93 Sandals. And we have, last but not least, Deree Faliakos. She's the co-founder of 3/4. Thank you for being here with us, and we look forward to hearing from you on the following questions. So, my first question obviously is, mentioning these incredible facts and also a lot more information that circulates obviously in reports and credible sources about the fashion industry and its impact on the beauty industry as well. I want to hear from all of you, why does this industry need to change? And how, from your perspective, how does it look like today? You're all business owners from this side, and you're representing a multinational with a huge environmental footprint. Although Avida has a different mission, right? It goes away from, it has turned away from the stream. So
this is the one that doesn't work. So Aveda was sustainable before it was cool. It was founded in 1978 and had sustainability as its philosophy since day one. We still use sustainable raw materials. We use recycled post-consumed plastic since 2002, far ahead from today's trend. And we strive to be an environmental leader, example, for all the beauty industry.
Perfect. And what about Emma? What do you think needs to change in the fashion industry? You're representing a startup practically. You're a neophyte.
Yes. So actually, we started not very long ago. It's about a little bit over a year. And we're very lucky to be able to collaborate with a company that has been founded in the late 80s, Cocomat, and all the leftovers that they use for their beds and mattresses, we take over here in Athens, and we make sandals. I'm actually wearing some today, obviously, to show you. So we use the same philosophy. We want to use eco-friendly materials, and if they're not, we just try to reuse everything that we can. Yeah, it's something that didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just really knew that I wanted to use reuse materials that were going to waste. So that's basically our basic fundamental kind of what we strive to use every day. And then the rest are a few other things that we use that I can talk later about it. But yeah, so we use leftover fabrics to make shoes, because sandals, you don't need lots of fabric for it. So it's a great opportunity for us to just use what a company doesn't know what to do with it. We use it and we make beautiful things out of it. That's that. You want to talk?
And Fala?
Dora? No? Okay. So the question is, what is need to be changed in the fashion industry? So I think I will start with some data, as you did, just to give an idea of what we're talking about. 1 second. So the clothing production has doubled in the last 20 years. And 20 years is not much, it's just 2020, 2000. So I mean, all the production of the last 20 years is pretty much more than we have ever produced before. It's estimated to be like around 100 billion tons of fabrics after 2014 continuously. And about 80% of those clothes, they end up in a landfill. And only 12% is manageable to end up at some level of being recycled. Not fully recycled, but at some level.
and things that sometimes we don't even really realize is the tons of pre-production waste, and those are estimated annually about 90 million tons. So we talk about a lot of waste, not only those that we see, the fabrics that the clothes that we buy ourselves, but also the waste that the industry produces.
And on that, I may add on that, because it's really relevant. I read somewhere lately that currently the global market, not the Greek market obviously, the global market relies on recycled materials in less than 10%. Right, recycled raw materials.
And the reason is because it's very, very difficult to recycle. Recycle should be our least option. I will explain further if we want to why it is so difficult to recycle. But for us, for 3/4, the most important thing is to actually have a clear idea about the problem. And when we know and are able to map down the problems, then we are able to talk about sustainability, and that could actually make some sense. Because yeah, something needs to be changed, but what is that thing? And what we do is we don't want to add any extra fabrics on raw materials, since we have already enough out there. And we are exploring urban textile wastes locally in Athens. And so far, most of our products are related to awning wastes from the awning industry.
Awning meaning tents, right?
Yes.
We love tents in Greece. It's one of the it's part of the culture, I think. I mean.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. And last but not least, Christos, your experience precedes us all in the fashion industry. But also, Atelier Maison Faliakos has always been a pioneer when it comes to sustainability and upcycling and circularity in haute couture. How does that happen?
First of all, I want to thank you and Hadzigakis Foundation for this beautiful conversation. I want to thank Deree College for the hospitality. Θα μου επιτρέψετε να μιλήσω στα ελληνικά, το προτιμώ μου, είναι πιο βολικό. Η Ελισάβετ θα μεταφράσει
I will be
στα ελληνικά.
translating for all our international attendants.
Είμαι ο Χρήστος Πετρίδης. Βρίσκομαι και εργάζομαι στη Βιομηχανία της ελληνικής μόδας από το 1993. Του χρόνου κλείνω 30 χρόνια και μου είναι πάρα πολύ ευχάριστο αυτό να σας το λέω. Είμαι στο Maison Faliakos που εκεί εκπαιδεύτηκα, εκεί εργάστηκα, δεν άλλαξα άλλα ατελιέ και άλλες επιχειρήσεις, οπότε μπορώ να σας δώσω μία καθαρή, αν θέλετε, άποψη της λειτουργίας. Τα τελευταία χρόνια ως Maison Faliakos συμμετέχουμε σε πάρα πολλές συζητήσεις με αυτό το θέμα και αυτό ξεκίνησε από μία παρουσία που κάναμε πριν 4-5 χρόνια στην εβδομάδα μόδας του Λονδίνου, που αποφασίσαμε με το Βενέδικτο, που είναι η τρίτη γενιά του Maison Faliakos, να παρουσιάσουμε και κάποια ρούχα τα οποία ανήκουν στην ιστορία του Maison και να τους δώσουμε μια καινούργια πνοή και να τα ξαναπαρουσιάσουμε. Αυτό λοιπόν ήταν το εφαλτήριο να μας δούνε κάπου στο Λονδίνο, κάποιοι που ασχολούνται, και να μπούμε έτσι σε έναν κύκλο καινούριων γνωριμιών με ανθρώπους που είναι στην ίδια φιλοσοφία και σε πολύ ενδιαφέρουσες συζητήσεις γύρω από όλο αυτό το θέμα. Μπορεί λίγο να σας ξενερώσω, αλλά για εμάς, για το Maison Faliakos, όλο αυτό είναι κάτι δεδομένο. Αυτό για μας ισχύει από τότε που υπάρχουμε ως Maison Faliakos. Εγώ έχω μεγαλώσει και έχω γαλουχηθεί με ανθρώπους που τώρα πια δεν είναι στη ζωή, άνθρωποι που είχαν ζήσει παλαιότερες εποχές, γυναίκες που εργαζόταν στη μόδα, μοδίστρες, κεντίστρες, Άνθρωποι που αυτό το κάνανε περισσότερο επειδή το αγαπούσανε και δευτερεύον επειδή επιβιώνανε και ζούσανε μέσα από αυτό. Το να σέβεσαι αυτό που έχεις στη δουλειά σου, να το αξιοποιείς μέχρι το τέλος, μέχρι όσο μπορεί αυτό να κρατήσει, για εμάς είναι κάτι που είναι δεδομένο, κάτι που είναι στη καθημερινότητα. Να σκεφτείτε ότι εμείς που είμαστε ένα ενεργό ατελιέ, με αρκετό κόσμο και με πολλή δραστηριότητα, περισσότερο χώρο έχουν οι αποθήκες μας παρά ο σάκος των σκουπιδιών που θα πετάξουμε την τελευταία εβδομάδα.
Γιατί έχετε τράπεζα υφασμάτων.
Εμείς αποθηκεύουμε τα πάντα και είναι μία, ξέρετε, έτσι, δεδομένο μέσα στη ζωή πια πλέον μια συνήθεια που έχει γίνει ότι ποτέ δεν θα πετάξουμε κάτι εάν δεν περάσει πρώτα από την αποθήκη και αν δεν περάσει ο χρόνος που χρειάζεται για να δοθεί η ευκαιρία να ξαναχρησιμοποιηθεί.
Okay, so my name is Christos Petridis and I count almost 30 years in the fashion industry. I'm celebrating actually this year. And I represent an atelier which timelessly had in its culture the fact of circularity and the respect for the materials and the crafts. We also have a bank of fabrics and textiles, which means that we do not actually invest much on new textiles, and which means that actually our bank of textiles is larger than the bag of our trash, our waste every year, which is a nice actually analogy, by the way. And with new generation, Benedictus Adipas, we've tried always to stay true to the philosophy of the atelier, which is respecting the textiles, not wasting, and trying to incorporate in every collection these elements by reusing, repurposing other textiles from previous collections, accessories, and buttons, and you name it. I hope I did a good job. Okay, let's move forward to the next question. And this is a panel about zero waste in the fashion and beauty industries. So we cannot not ask, how do you define zero waste via your business and via your role? So I'll jump to Emma.
So yes, zero waste for us is basically the materials that we can use as much as we can. We use leftover fabrics, so that's either cotton and linen. And then we of course create waste ourselves, so we use those leftover fabrics, from the leftover fabrics, to do other little things. For example, if you buy shoes, usually you get there's paper inside the shoe, right? So the form of the shoe doesn't change. Well, what we do in collaboration with two foundations, I don't know, Margarita, which is in Pedeli, and Ergastiri, which is in Anolosia. They're both foundations with people with disabilities. So together with them, they either come and work with us in our atelier, or we bring them hearts that we cut, or they cut, and then we fill them with the leftover fabrics, which we then put in our shoe, so the form doesn't change of the shoe. So it's basically, instead of stuffing it with paper and then throwing the paper away, we have a whole little thing, ritual, and together with other people, the other foundations, we make something very beautiful that you can then keep and pass on to a friend or a loved one. So that's literally what we try in our atelier to use, and what Christos said as well, just to use even the last little thing, because we said, what are we going to do with the leftovers from the leftovers that we're using? And then, of course, we're a very nice creative team, so someone came up with that idea, why don't we just put in, because we were thinking, how's the shoe gonna not change the form, because okay, we send it to stores. So then we came up with something that yeah, it's basically using the last thing. So really trying to use no waste in our company like that. There are other things as well, but that's a good example, I think.
Thank you. And also, what's particularly interesting about you is that you have created a symbiosis and interactivity with the civil society, actually, because you are doing the synergies with the foundations, which adds to the equation that we were talking before about paying your employees a living wage, but also providing employment to, let's say, unprivileged or social groups in the periphery, which is also really important.
No, and it's great actually because in the beginning you think, oh, you're actually helping people that wouldn't find a job otherwise, or they are at home and they don't feel part of the community, but they're actually helping us a lot as well, because we realize they don't come every day, they come a few times a week. That day we're all like, okay, today they're coming, we need their desk needs to be able, nice and clear. So we ourselves have to think about how we have to communicate things that might be quick for us, like everyday things, but then you have to find a way to explain it again, and be okay with explaining it again. So yeah, that's something that we really are doing, and we started with one child, now we're at 3, so we're just trying to grow all the time, and it's a big part of our production line, yes.
And Argini, could you give us the aspect of multinational brands?
So what we were doing the past years was to become zero waste, and we have achieved that. We are zero industrial waste to landfill in our main factory back in Minnesota. We also, I will use some numbers as well, we use post-consumed milk bottles to create one of our top-selling SKU, and we save up to 600 tons by doing that, tons of plastic. And also, we utilize byproducts of other industries. Excuse me. For example, rice grains, broken rice grains that cannot be sold. We extract the rice protein from those grains. Shall I say more? We also utilize pomegranate seeds. We extract the oil, which is very high in omega-5 amino acids. And we use this material in one of our top-selling shampoo, Nutriplenish. So we diminish the products of other industries, the juice-making companies.
Very cool. And going to Rayfala, how do you define zero waste by 3/4?
Okay, zero waste. Sorry. Okay, zero waste for us is divided in 3 different parts. One is pre-production waste that we try to minimize, and it has to do on how you make your the shape of each of your designs. In our case, bags. The other thing, which is like the basic, I should have started with that one, is the material itself, right? So, for us, being zero waste means that we don't work with new raw materials. We work with materials that they haven't been used, they're offcuts from the local industries, but they would end up in the landfill, and they're all waste anyways. And the third aspect, which I think is one of the most important in any company, and actually to me it's the easiest way to detect greenwashing, because that happens a lot, is how to deal with the end of the circle of your product's life. And usually the companies, they just they don't want to deal with that issue at all. So they say it's the customer's responsibility to to deal with it, or it's well, someone else's, but not the company's itself. What we do is we offer free repairs for life, and in the case that a person doesn't want to use their bag anymore, they will just return it to us, and they're built in that way that you can very easily disassemble it, and use all the different parts, actually reuse them or deal with them in-house. But I have to add one more detail. When we talk about pre-production waste, often we forget about all the other materials apart from the fabric. And that's also very important, because some of those materials could be natural, like some threads, but most of the times they are synthetic materials, or metal parts, or could be 100% plastic.
Yes, so the zippers, for example, the handles, what do you do with that?
Well, our zippers are 100% from recycled plastic, and usually because we can order them in quantities in specific sizes according to each model, so we don't have any waste from the zippers, but we have a waste from the threads while sewing. We have metal parts also while sewing. So we have to keep in mind that anything we produce, it has some waste behind it. And normally what we do is, as Emma said, we use them in small projects, or we use them in completely different projects. Like, for example, our main product is bags, but we're also making, we're starting our home accessory
oh, really?
series. So we use them for
That's
stuffing.
hard news.
Yeah.
You kept it for this panel. Okay, great. Perfect. So let's go back to Christos. And how do you define zero waste via your work at the atelier Maison Faliakos?
Όπως σας είπα και πριν, για εμάς είναι κάτι το δεδομένο, είναι κάτι το έχει περάσει πια εδώ και πάρα πολλά χρόνια στην καθημερινότητά μας, γιατί έτσι ήταν πάντα. Όταν δημιουργείς, δεν ξέρεις ποτέ τι θα χρησιμοποιήσεις. Και αυτή είναι μια άλλη διάσταση που μπορεί να βοηθήσει στο Zero Waste. Δηλαδή, όταν είσαι ένας άνθρωπος που μπορεί να χρησιμοποιήσεις τα πάντα για να δημιουργήσεις κάτι, και αυτό μπορεί να είναι και στην καθημερινότητα και στη ζωή, δηλαδή δεν χρειάζεται να είναι η δουλειά σου, στο σπίτι σου.
Θα μας δώσει ένα παράδειγμα για τα ληφικά που κάνετε, τα upcycle ληφικά.
Ναι. Στο σπίτι σου, δηλαδή κάτι που πιθανότατα μπορεί να το πετάξεις, αύριο μεθαύριο μπορεί να το χρειαστείς. Βέβαια αυτό δεν σημαίνει ότι θα μπορείς να μαζεύεις τα πάντα, αλλά υπάρχει μια μεσαία, ας πούμε, μια μέση λύση, να μπορείς να χρησιμοποιείς ό,τι περισσότερο σου δίνει την ευκαιρία και μέσα από αυτό μπορείς να δημιουργήσεις κάτι και να του δώσεις και μια καινούργια ζωή. Εμείς βέβαια είναι η δουλειά μας έτσι που μπορούμε αυτό να το χρησιμοποιούμε. Παλαιότερα, γιατί όπως σας έχω πει είμαι αρκετά χρόνια και έχω ζήσει και τις παλαιότερες γενναίες γυναικών, σκεφτείτε ότι τώρα, ας πούμε, στο ατελείο έχουμε 3 γενιές, γιαγιά, κόρη, εγγονή, οπότε την εποχή που υπήρχαν πριν 20 χρόνια, 25, ήταν και κάπως πιο περασμένο στην νοοτροπία των γυναικών ότι τα ρούχα, τα περσινά, παλιά, τα φετινά, καινούρια. Δηλαδή υπήρχε εκ των πραγμάτων μια κίνηση στο να χρησιμοποιούν οι γυναίκες πράγματα χωρίς τόσο εύκολα να τα πετάνε.
Σωστό αυτό, ναι.
Οπότε, αν πατήσεις λίγο πάνω σε αυτή τη φιλοσοφία, όλοι έχουμε γιαγιάδες, θείες, ξέρω εγώ, αν αναρωτηθούμε λίγο και συζητήσουμε μαζί τους πώς λειτουργούσε τότε και ακόμη παλαιότερα όλη αυτή η ροή, όλη αυτή η αλυσίδα, νομίζω ότι θα είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό στο να βάλουμε κάποια αποτελέσματα και να δώσουμε δώσουμε κι εμείς στη ζωή μας έτσι ένα καινούριο ερέθισμα.
Perfect. Okay, θα προσθέσω εγώ το παράδειγμα ιδανικά. Okay, so I'll try to summarize. So for us at the Atelier Maison Faliakos, this has been inherent in our philosophy since our establishment. And we go along with history in the third generation now, from grandmothers to mothers and daughters, into a philosophy that is circular, and which means that we take care of the fabrics, and when we create, we actually make use, or trying to make use of every little piece of fabric, but we also have the freedom to do that because it's inherent in our business to minimize waste. And adding to that, I'll give an example Christos didn't mention, but they do incredible bridal creations which are upcycled, which means that they take fabrics from previous collections or fabrics from their bank of textiles, and they create new garments, so giving new life actually.
Exactly.
Perfect. So let's jump into the next question, which is very interesting because when we talk about sustainable products, we usually, Celine mentioned before, that there is a stigma around the second-hand market. So I believe there is a stigma, and we all know about it, when we hear about sustainable products. We think that they might be looking weird, or not catchy enough, not attractive enough, maybe cheap. So I want to ask you all, how does the market and, in fact, your customer base react to sustainable products which are marketed openly as circular and sustainable? And how do you deal with potential bias? And I will start from you, Emma. You're a neophyte, and your product has a lot to teach us, so walk us through this.
Yes, so I was a little bit afraid in the beginning when it started. However, I do see a change more and more. The people that come either to our atelier or see our shoes in other stores, people do like the idea that it's reused, and then this was part of a couch, and now it's a shoe, it's a sandal. So it might. The only issue is, of course, it's not fast fashion. We make everything in the atelier. It's all handmade from the beginning until the end. So that makes, of course, the price higher than a shoe in Zara for 35 euros. So people might not buy it as easily, but they always do come back. They think about it, they do the research, and I think people more often appreciate the work that's put in, the thought, how people work in our atelier. It's nice. It's people come, and it is work, of course. It's stress, but it's a nice environment, and I think people appreciate that. And you're more and more thinking about all the other factors as well when you buy a product. It's who makes it, how they're making it, what they're using to make it. So I think slowly it's getting better. At least I see it in my generation. I'm 28, and most of my friends think about it more and more. Of course, it's hard when you walk right next to Zara and there's an amazing dress that you want, and you just don't do it anymore. At least I don't, and I have friends who don't do it either. But it's harder, but people are getting there. I'm very optimistic about it.
So would you say transparency might be a winner in the game of, let's say, negative connotations arising and bias?
100%. We are transparent as well. In our atelier, anyone can come and see exactly how we make it from the beginning to the end, which I think is very important. And transparency is the most important thing. And at the end, people will think about it. It's also, panel A said it. I think that we're the ones who are going to have an issue in 30 years, the older generation is going to be fine and not here, so we're the ones who got to do it. And I think my generation is slowly getting there for sure. I believe in my generation.
I think so. At least there is an effort going on for sure. Deree, what can you tell us about your business and your customers?
I think I don't want to repeat what Anna said, so I'll try to respond slightly differently, even though I totally agree with. I will start with what Christos said. So it was very common a couple of, or maybe not couple, but a few years ago, to work on your own clothes and reform them. I think because of that, there might be a misconception that upcycling means actually doing a hobby, and I think I've mentioned that before, but we try to make clear to our customers that this is a brand, and a sustainable brand, which means we also try to be financially sustainable. So this is not a hobby, this is a business. Meaning that the drawings, the designs, and the production is premium, and it's not a homemade, and like that actually meaning like made in my house product. So once you get that idea that you might have a successful business that's really based on upcycling, then you might start thinking also and comparing also what it means to choose to buy products from a sustainable, local brand. Locality is really important for 3/4. Or buy from another brand that, I wouldn't even mention that it's fast fashion, but buy from another brand that its production is somewhere else than the European Union. And once you realize that, then you won't have any doubts, as Emma said, about the cost or about the ethics behind it, because everything is transparent in the way we decide to make them and in the way we actually do it.
Perfect, thank you. And let's go to Ayimi.
Well, our consumers seek for high-performance products, but they also demand sustainability, and they demand proof. So all those certifications, for example, B Corp certified, which will come for our brand in a couple of months as well, and the Living Bunny certification that we also have. All these establish what we say. We don't just claim that we are sustainable, we have proof. And we have noticed this shift from the consumers the past couple of years, after COVID especially. They call us and they want to see the documentation actually. Not only they ask us more information, they want to see the documentation. So I feel confident that the next generation, millennials and Gen Z and further younger, they have understood the criticality of sustainability and changing our habits.
Perfect. And let's go back to Christos and your customer base, which is quite different, because you're an atelier, a haute couture atelier.
Θεωρώ πολύ ευλογημένο τον εαυτό μου και γενικά εμάς που εργαζόμαστε όλοι μαζί, όλη την ομάδα σε αυτό το ατελιέ, γιατί η δική μας η επαφή με τον κόσμο είναι πάρα πολύ άμεση. Είναι πάρα πολύ ωραίο με τον κόσμο που δουλεύεις και βιοπορίζεσαι μέσα από αυτή τη δουλειά, να έχεις αυτή την ανθρώπινη επαφή, να ζεις μαζί τους στοιχεία της ζωής τους, ευχάριστα, γάμο, βάφτιση, δυσάριστα, κηδείες, τα πάντα όλα, με πολύ αγάπη και με πολύ έτσι, να περνάνε τα χρόνια και να βρίσκεστε κοντά. Παρόλο που δεν σας δένει κάτι, αλλά σας δένει ίσως αυτή η αγάπη που μπορεί να έχετε εσύ δημιουργώντας κάτι και οι γυναίκες αυτές επιλέγοντας κάτι για να ντυθούν. Είναι πάρα πολύ γλυκό αυτό να το έχεις μέσα στη ζωή σου. Εγώ θα σας δώσω δύο παραδείγματα που είναι πάρα πολύ όμορφα. Αύριο έχουμε ένα ραντεβού με μια οικογένεια που τους τράβουμε 3 γενιές. Και αύριο θα έρθει η γιαγιά 80 τόσο, η κόρη 50 τόσο και η εγγονή 20 τόσο. Είναι πάρα πολύ γλυκό να έχεις όλο αυτό το όμορφο vibes 3 διαφορετικών γενεών που μεταξύ τους μοιράζονται το ίδιο πράγμα. Ένα άλλο παράδειγμα. Πέρυσι, μία πολύ όμορφη και νέα κοπέλα, 20 χρονών, 19, φόρεσε στην αποφοίτηση του σχολείου της το φόρεμα που έβαλε η μητέρα της μία μέρα πριν παντρευτεί, πριν 22 χρόνια. Και ήταν καταπληκτική. Και όλες οι συμμαθήτριές της είπανε, τι ωραίο φόρεμα που είναι αυτό. Αυτή είναι η δική μας η καθημερινότητα. Αυτό ζούμε εμείς κάθε μέρα με τις πελάτησές μας, με το δημιουργικό μας, μέσα σε όλη αυτή την τρέλα της επιβίωσης, και για μας είναι ένας πολύ βασικός πυλώνας της ζωής μας. Και γι' αυτό μας βλέπετε να είμαστε και τόσο ευχαριστημένοι με όλο αυτό.
Άρα δεν έχουμε στερεοτυπικές συμπεριφορές εσάς σε ό,τι αφορά την επαναχρησιμοποίηση υφασμάτων, γιατί έχετε μια ανθρώπινη σχέση η οποία εκτιμάται σε άλλο επίπεδο. Okay, let me translate. Thank you, Christos. So for us, our customer base is connected to feelings of familial ties, of intimacy from generation to generation. So we have actually, because the circularity and our techniques are inherent in our philosophy, that transcends the relationships that we built with the customers intergenerationally. Which means that we don't have to actually work a lot on that, because we work on the relationship, on the bond. The techniques and the craftsmanship and the circularity and the repurposing of textiles, it's understood and heavily lauded from our clients because of the strong interpersonal ties, which is quite interesting as an aspect for an haute couture atelier.
Πριν αρκετά χρόνια γνώρισα ένα συνάδελφο Ιταλός, ο οποίος δούλευε στο Παρίσι και είχε αναλάβει για 2 σεζόν καλλιτεχνικός διευθυντής της εταιρείας Pucci, που κάνει τα εμπριμέ. Είναι παλιά εταιρεία. Και με είχε καλέσει και είχα πάει σε ένα show που είχε κάνει στο Παρίσι, το πρώτο του show.
Να μεταφράσω, ναι. Okay. A couple of years ago I met with an associate from Paris. He had just taken over the role, a very important role at Pucci, Emilia Pucci, right?
Ο Ραφαέλ είχε εργαστεί και στον Tom Ford ένα διάστημα, είχε κάνει και δική του σειρά που δεν μπόρεσε να καθίσει, τέλος πάντων, και είχαμε πιάσει μια συζήτηση. Και του εξηγούσα εγώ πώς δουλεύουμε εδώ στην Ελλάδα, εμείς, το ατελιέ της Ελλάδας κτλ. Αυτό που μου είχε πει είναι ότι είμαι πάρα πολύ ωραία εδώ που είμαι, παίρνω πάρα πολύ καλά λεφτά, δεν έχω όμως καμία επαφή με το ποιος φοράει τα ρούχα που σχεδιάζω. Δεν ξέρω. Έρχονται οι buyers, τα αγοράζουν, πάνε σε όλα τα μήκη και πλάτη του κόσμου, αλλά εγώ δεν ξέρω ποιος φοράει τα ρούχα. Για μας είναι κάτι το τελείως αντίθετο. Και γι' αυτό για έναν κάποιο λόγο δεν θέλουμε και πάρα πολύ τα ρούχα μας να κυκλοφορούν παντού. Έχουμε συνηθίσει να έχουμε τέτοια άμεση επαφή με τις γυναίκες που τα φοράνε, που για εμάς αυτό είναι ενέργεια, έμπνευση και τροφή για να μπορέσουμε να το δώσουμε πίσω.
So this associate Raphael from Paris, he had a long-standing career at Tom Ford and other multinational brands, and we discussed a lot about the industry, and what struck me is he said, I create clothes, I come into contact with the product, but the fact is I don't have any idea who actually wears the product because it's very cold and impersonal. I get to see the buyers, they buy the clothes, they buy the products, and that's actually it. So for us at the atelier Maison Faliakos, this is incredibly different, vertically different, because the intimacy and the interpersonal bond is what defines the customers and also our atelier. They become adopters of our new techniques, of our craftsmanship, of the fact that we reuse the fabrics, and that's what makes us good creators at the end of the day.
Maybe I add something?
Sure.
I think maybe during or after the pandemic, this is also a shift that we've noticed. The people are looking for a more personal experience with whatever they buy. So they kind of slow down in their everyday life, and that really affected the way they started, the way they consumed, and they will be consuming if we keep this as a milestone, the pandemic period as a milestone. So this is, I think, the positive thing about the brands that are doing something sustainable, local, and in-house made, because the products themselves, they're never 100% identical like in fast fashion. So each customer can actually find himself or herself in the design itself.
Of course, and if I may add here, apart from Arini, who's representative of a multinational brand, you are all small, medium-sized SMEs with a very strong element of locality. You're the Mets, you're located in Likovisi, another community, you're located in Psiri, vibrant neighborhoods that are finding themselves in a sort of renaissance period. And that's also starting from you, from the businesses that give life to the neighborhoods. Okay, and mentioning your neighborhoods, let's talk about the case in Greece. As a Greek small, medium-sized business and a multinational, but of course, and a multinational with a bearing in the Greek market, strong bearing in the Greek market. What were the challenges in building your business on a sustainable and zero waste route and philosophy? And for you, Arini, I'll start with you. This is a custom question because I want you to give us a hint of how did the Greek market embrace Vida with this particular mission that is zero waste, contrasting, let's say, other brands in the same conglomerate?
Well, the acceptance is positive. The obstacle was the awareness and the education to the consumer. Especially our brands that do so many stuff around sustainability and helping communities and the planet. We have to educate. We have a lot to say, and we have limited time and money to spend in order to send the message out there. So at the beginning we faced a lot of obstacles of awareness, but now, after almost 5 years of presence in the Greek market, we see that people, because they seek sustainable brands and brands that have the ethos that they claim, they come to us. We don't go to them, so they come to us. They know us, they do their research, and they find us, our products and our hair salons, because we have also 2 branded hair salons.
So education was your biggest obstacle, educating your customers. Mm-hmm. Okay, very valid. And yes, I'll start with you. So, as a small, medium-sized business, μικρομεσαία επιχείρηση, ατελιέ εδώ και 40 χρόνια. Ποιες ήταν οι προκλήσεις για εσάς όταν ξεκινήσατε να λέτε ότι έχουμε μια βιώσιμη ταυτότητα και στείλουμε κολεξιόν από υπολείμματα υφασμάτων κλπ.
Περάσαμε την περίοδο που αυτό που κάναμε και αυτό που πιστεύαμε ήταν πασέ, δεν ήταν της μόδας. Διότι η Ελλάδα τα τελευταία χρόνια, μετά το 80, εξελίχθηκε πάρα πολύ έντονα. Και ειδικά μετά το 70 και μετά το 80 εξελίχθηκε πολύ έντονα. Εγώ λοιπόν θεωρώ ότι αυτές οι τρομερά έντονες σε εξέλιξη δεκαετίες, επειδή εμείς δεν έχουμε ζήσει αναγέννηση ως χώρα, είμαστε μια χώρα που δημιουργήθηκε τα τελευταία 200 χρόνια, μας πήρε η μπάλα, θα έλεγα. Και γι' αυτό καταλήξαμε τώρα να καθόμαστε να συζητάμε για πράγματα τα οποία στη δική μας κοινωνία ήταν δεδομένα. Εγώ μεγάλωσα στη Θεσσαλονίκη, συνεργατική οικογένεια. Η ανακύκλωση ήταν δεδομένο στην οικογένεια. Έτσι μεγάλωσαμε στην Ελλάδα οι περισσότεροι. Η δικιά μου γενιά που είμαι 52 χρονών. Κάπου χάθηκε η πέρα τις τελευταίες δεκαετίες, κάπου κάποια πράγματα που ερχόταν από πιο προηγμένες και εξελιγμένες κοινωνίες παρερμηνεύτηκαν κατά την ταπεινή μου γνώμη λάθος, πήραμε τα αρνητικά και δεν πήραμε τα θετικά και εκεί καταλήξαμε να βρισκόμαστε τώρα εδώ και να συζητάμε για κάτι το οποίο στην ελληνική κοινωνία ήταν δεδομένο.
Okay, I'm translating. As a small, medium-sized business, for us, it was always there. And for me, growing up in Thessaloniki, recycling was a part of a lifestyle that we always had. And, you know, in Greece, that we've seen development trends over the years, and we're starting to talk about these terms of recycling and repurposing, which for us were a given, and we always adopted these practices, and we timelessly adopted these practices. So, very clear, very clear.
Και θα ήθελα να προσθέσω και κάτι στο business κομμάτι. Εμείς ως Maison επιλέγουμε ο κόσμος μας που έχουμε διεθνή κόσμο, δεν είναι απαραίτητο να πας εσύ εκεί για να γίνεις διεθνή. Μπορείς ο κόσμος να έρθει εδώ και να σε κάνει διεθνή. Εγώ από τότε που μπήκα στο Maison Faliakos από το 1993 υπήρχαν πελάτες οι οποίες δεν ζούσαν στην Ελλάδα, ζούσαν σε άλλα σημεία του κόσμου, αλλά επισκεπτόταν την Ελλάδα για να τη δούνε και για να κάνουν και τα ρούχα τους. Μέχρι και τώρα σε εμάς ισχύει αυτό. Πάρα πολλές πελάτες που ξέρουμε τη ζωή τους και ξέρουν τη ζωή μας, μπορεί να τους βλέπουμε μία φορά το χρόνο, μπορεί να τους βλέπουμε μία φορά τη σεζόν, αλλά θα περάσουν να έρθουν, να μας δούνε, να πάρουν τα ρούχα τους, να τα πούμε και να τα ξαναπούμε του χρόνου.
So, Christos is adding here the international element, which was previously mentioned by Stavros Obanidis, and here we have an atelier who didn't strive to become international. It sort of happened because of its expansion in the customer base. So the customers actually came to the atelier for the local element, for the intimacy element that we talked about, So that also, I have a hint there for the transportation thing, so they do not transport too many clothes. Another part of your sustainable zero waste philosophy. Okay, thank you. And let's go to Haripalya. I'm reminding you the question. You are a Greek, a small, medium-sized business, right? And I want to ask you, what were the challenges in building your business in the Greek market, in the framework that's non-existent?
I don't know where to start from. Okay. I think the most difficult part was actually to build a community of suppliers. And that might sound very weird, but it took us quite some time to persuade the people from the awning industry to actually sell us their waste. They were very negative about it. Most of them are people that they work with not super up-to-date business model, so they're anything anybody would ever suggest them. So it took us quite some time to build that network. And it's still very hard because the more people get to know us, the more they raise the price on the waste. So we really need to start building a completely different mentality in general in the businesses in Greece to be able to achieve what would be for 3/4 our goal, to be at some point fully circular. So we really need to start learning to work with each other. And
if I may add on that, because that's a really serious issue you're tapping into. There is no framework, which means there's no policy. Policymakers just step in here and do this urgently in order to create a new market, in order to create incentives to suppliers for the secondary market of raw materials. Otherwise, you know, this challenge is going to keep going and going, right?
The tricky part here is what I said actually at the beginning of this discussion. In order to have the context, you need to know the problem. And I think even though we have a new law about dealing with the textile waste, I don't think that people who are responsible about building that context actually have an idea how big the problem is. Because lots of the fabrics, lots of the textiles, and generally the materials we use in Greece, they're not even registered. So how come you? You cannot think of a solution unless you already know the problem. So
the traceability is another huge issue, another huge challenge for all, I guess, for all of you.
I think in general in Greece that's very, very blurry, very blurry. But our example, our case study is a bottom-up way of doing things. So once we realized how big the problem is with the awning waste, we estimate that we throw away about 3 tons of brand new material every time we changed our balcony awnings.
Only 3 tons?
300 tons.
300 tons, and it ends up on landfills?
Yeah.
Probably.
Only in the municipality of Athens, not generally.
Only in the municipality of Athens, 300 tons?
Every time we change the balcony awning. Once we realized what was that problem, then we tried ourselves to build that network and to reach in higher, let's say, levels of educating people. It's also our responsibility, right? Yeah, and then...
So biggest challenge, I'm stopping you there, biggest challenge was the suppliers network.
Biggest challenge is actually, to build the network.
What about you, Emma?
Well, you're actually very right about that, with suppliers as well. We make sandals, which is very hard because everything's hard, but the shoes, you step on water, you step on all sorts of things, so it's very difficult for it to be 100% natural. So our motto is as well as sustainable as possible, as soon as possible. When we started, not so long ago, a year ago, our soles were just 100% recyclable plastic. So I would go to the guy who gives us the soles, and I was like, but is there nothing else? Is there really nothing else? Is it just 100% plastic? There's not. Well, how? Like how? It was like, no, there's really nothing yet out there that we can that I can give you. So we were going back and forth, and then now we have a sole that has cork inside as well, so we reduce the plastic. So what I wanted to say as well is that I think in panel A or C, we discussed that just don't try to be perfect as well. You have to start from somewhere. Yeah, shoes is tricky, and there was 100% plastic in the beginning. About 300 shoes made like that, 100%, I'm not going to lie about it, but you have to start somewhere so you can see what the problem is, and then you can come up with a solution. So back and forth with a guy, we find a new sole now. Now we're making a new one with wood, so that we can completely get another 40% of the plastic gone. So you have to just do things and try to be positive, and then something will come out. So that was following what you said about the suppliers.
So a big challenge for both of you.
For me, it was definitely also suppliers, but then also the fact that you can find such, I mean, clothes and bags as well, and cosmetics, but shoes as well. You can just go buy super cheap shoes, and they're great, and they're cute, and they're great colors. So our challenges as well that we're competing with cheap, very pretty shoes.
So of course, the fast fashion monster. Okay,
exactly.
We know.
So that's the only thing that I would say is well a challenge for us.
But I would say, as a concluding note, before I thank you very much for your presence here today, I would say that there is momentum, and your presence here today and our speakers in all of the panels are testament of things that might change, can change, and for this reason, and will change, yes, and for this reason, to pair theory with practice, discussion with actual events, we are closing this half-day conference, Sustainabilities Now, with a fashion show. So, we will all have the chance to see your incredible creations and get incredible gifts from Avida, thank you very much, and free sunglasses, Stavros Tsopanidis brand, downstairs, and we will get to take a peek of the actual products and your fruits of labor, I would say. Thank you very much for being here with us today, and thank you. I hope you leave this room a little bit more inspired, skeptical about the future, and as I said at the beginning, let's mobilize our peers to think the same way in any way we can, with the tools that we have. Thank you.